Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Brussels. We have live broadcast on Brussels Press Club TV at the moment, so good morning to the rest of the world. Today is the European Day for Victims of Crime, a day that invites reflection, commitment, and maybe, ideally, progress. This is a European moment, and perhaps even more so, a European responsibility. Today marks another step towards the moment when all member states will have established the 116.006 helpline in line with the obligations of the revised Victims Rights Directive. One number, one standard, equal support everywhere. Today is also a key moment in Victims Support Europe's ongoing campaign dedicated to this helpline. A central element of this campaign is the Helpline Pledge. The pledge called on frontliners and also citizens of the European Union to support the establishment of this helpline in 13 member states where it doesn't yet exist, and also to ensure they met VSC helpline quality standards. I will announce the results of this pledge after the opening sessions because in Brussels suspense increases engagement. But first, let me ask you, how many of you here have signed the pledge? Can you please raise your hand? Okay, I see that it's almost half or maybe a half of this room, which is fantastic. And here is a little bit of a spoiler. Belgium was the leading country in terms of signatories. And this is especially meaningful because Belgium does not yet have the helpline. So we'll reveal the rest of the results late after the opening session. Today's event is made possible with the joint effort of Victims Support Europe, the European Commission, and of course the Cyprus presidency of the Council of the European Union. And this year is special for another reason. We are doing this event for the third time, and those of you, most of you work with data and with evidence. 3 means statistics. So statistically, I can declare that this event is everyone who has traveled from near and far today, from Belgium, France, Spain, Romania, Estonia, Croatia, Cyprus, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Poland, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and even as far as the United States and China, proving that when it comes to supporting victims, distance is no obstacle. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. Fire safety. In case of fire, please follow the exit signs. Timekeeping, our timekeeper Cecile. Now, she will be indicating 5 or 1 minute left signs. And well-being first. If any part of today's discussion feels heavy and you need support, Larisa Spahic, here she is, the fire lady, our victim care team representative, is gonna support you. Thank you very much, and let's start with the short video.
On a simple promise that people would be protected wherever they are, no matter which country they were in. Essential services like the police, ambulance, and fire brigade have saved countless lives across Europe. To maximize access, emergency numbers were harmonized in the EU in 1972. Simple, easy to remember numbers like 112 are now known in every household.
Yet essential services cover so much more. Suicide helplines, emotional support, help for children and young people. A diverse and complex environment meant that those who often needed this type of help didn't know where to find it.
As a result, 35 years after common emergency numbers were adopted, 116 became the official EU number for services of social value. Like 116-000 for missing children, 116-111 for children and young people, 116-123 for emotional support, and 116-006 is part of this family. 2 years later, 116-006 became the official helpline number for victims of all crimes. It was created to offer something simple and powerful: fast, easy, free, confidential support when it is needed most. Yet, 2009 was just the beginning. In most EU states, no helpline existed to operate the number.
Today 116006 works, but only in 14 member states. 14? That is half of the European Union, which means millions of victims still cannot access the same help, the same care, the same rights. 15 years after the number was created, where you live still determines how easily you access support. In 2023, Victims Support Europe, together with 40 organisations across the EU, called for change. In 2024, the European Commission listened. It proposed what victims had needed all along, that 116006 must be mandatory, and in 2025, the revised Victims Rights Directive confirmed it. Every member state must provide a 116006 helpline. The commitment is now clear. The responsibility is shared.
Now comes the real challenge, because this is not just about numbers, it's about quality. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build consistent, high-quality access to victim support across Europe. Not call centres, but helplines that offer victim-centred support, clear information, referrals, and real connection to national services. Staffed by trained professionals, working to recognised procedures, focused on victims, reachable and known by all.
Done right, no matter where a victim is in the EU, one number will mean access to a trusted, high-quality service, connected to a real help on the ground. But there is also a risk. The helplines become invisible, poorly advertised, under-resourced, run like call centers, without specialist staff, without standards, without trust. That cannot be the outcome. What Europe needs is a shared model, one that brings together the law, the organization of services, and the standards they operate by.
Victim Support Europe's Center of Excellence for 116006 already brings together every existing operator in the EU. Together, we have developed the standards, and now we want to work with every member state to turn commitment into reality, so that 116006 exists in every country, so that it means the same thing everywhere.
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 Dear guests, it is my pleasure to introduce our first opening speaker. Ms. Polina F.T. Vulu, Attorney of the Republic of Cyprus and Head of the Public Prosecutors under the Cyprus Presidency of the Council of the European Union. But Ms. Polina, thank you very much for joining us for this important event. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear partners, it is a great honor and privilege to be here today on behalf of the Cyprus Presidency of the Council of the European Union to open the Victims Support Europe Symposium. Victims' rights are not an abstract legal concept. They reflect how our societies respond when people are harmed, frightened, or left vulnerable. They are about dignity, safety, and access to justice. They are about ensuring that systems exist to support people, not the other way around. For the Cyprus Presidency, the protection and support of victims of crime is a clear political priority. We firmly believe that the way we treat victims is a measure of the values we stand for as a European Union: solidarity, fairness, and respect for human dignity. This year's European Day for Victims of Crime carries particular significance. Across the European Union, important steps are being taken to strengthen the protection, recognition, and support of all victims of crime. The revised EU directive marks a decisive advance in placing victims firmly at the heart of our justice systems, ensuring that their rights are not only recognized in law, but realized in practice. It sends a strong message that victims matter, that their voices are heard, and that their needs must be addressed in a concrete and consistent way across all member states. During these first months of our presidency, we have prioritized this directive and have worked intensively with the Parliament to reach a final agreement on the entire text, further to the political agreement that was reached in December during the Danish presidency. We believe that the final outcome constitutes a strong and balanced text that would genuinely improve the lives of victims across Europe. Our commitment was always to ensure that this directive is not only ambitious on paper, but effective in practice. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the previous presidencies for their dedication and perseverance. Their work was instrumental in bringing this complex and sensitive file to a political agreement. Progress of this kind is only possible through continuity, cooperation, and a shared sense of responsibility. We firmly believe that the revised directive will strengthen victims' rights at every stage of the process they need to go through. It improves access to reporting, including through digital tools and third-party reporting. It reinforces victims' participation in criminal proceedings and their access to compensation, while at the same time ensuring that the new rules could apply effectively to all different legal systems across the EU. This is so important. It enhances the protection of personal data, helping to prevent secondary victimization. It also places a strong emphasis on child victims and on victims with specific needs, ensuring more tailored and trauma-informed support. Crucially, the revised directive recognizes the central role of victim support services, including EU-wide Helpline. This is where the importance of the 116006 Victim Helpline becomes very clear. For many victims, a helpline is the first point of contact. It is often the moment when someone finally feels able to speak, to ask for help, or simply to be heard. At that moment, clarity and accessibility matter. Victims should not need to navigate complex systems or search for information while in distress. The 116006 helpline is therefore not only a service. It is a key tool for implementing the revised Victims Rights Directive in practice. It turns legal rights into real support, guidance, and referrals. It helps ensure that no victim is left without assistance simply because of where they live. This work cannot be carried out by governmental authorities alone. Civil society organizations and frontline services play a vital role in delivering victim-centered support and in upholding high standards of quality and professionalism. Cooperation with networks such as Victim Support Europe is therefore essential, and I would like to acknowledge their long-standing commitment, expertise, and invaluable contribution. Cyprus stands firmly on the side of victims. As presidency, we will continue to promote policies that ensure dignity, protection, and equal access to support for all victims of crime. We remain fully committed to working closely with the EU institutions, member states, and civil society to turn this commitment into concrete reality. Thank you so much. Keep working.
Thanks a lot to the Cyprus presidency. Now the next speaker is Katarzyna Nicka-Pawlowska, the coordinator for victims' rights at the European Commission. In this role, she is of course instrumental to the revision of the Victims Rights Directive and in particular the advancement of this important helpline. I would like to invite on stage Kasia. The floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, every year, towards the end of February, we gather to celebrate the European Day of Victims' Rights. This annual gathering at this time of changing season, so winter will be soon gone, but spring has not arrived yet. This is really a good moment to reflect on what has been achieved so far and what still needs to be done. So this year celebration is special. We are reaching an important milestone, the revision of the Victims Rights Directive. On 10 December last year, the European co-legislators have provisionally agreed on the revision of the Victims Rights Directive. So the political discussions are over, the text is stable, the member states have recently approved the text. By the end of this month, the European Parliament should also approve the text. If everything goes smoothly, the text will be left in the skillful hands of our lawyer linguists, of the lawyer linguists of both institutions, the Parliament and the Council. And it should stay there for some weeks, maybe months. So I would say maybe end of spring, maybe rather before we part for the summer break, we should have the Victims' Rights Directive formally adopted. And this is really a big milestone. The process started with the evaluation of the Victims' Rights Directive more than 3 years ago, and it has been formally initiated when the European Commission has proposed the revision of the Victims' Rights Directive in summer 2023. So 3 years later, more than 3 years later, and after hundreds of hours of intense negotiations, the co-legislators have agreed on the text. And this is a very positive text. It includes numerous important changes. It basically improves every victim's main right under the Victims' Rights Directive. Victims' rights to information, victims' rights to support, to protection in accordance with victims' individual needs, victims' rights to receive decision and compensation from the offender, victims' participation in criminal proceedings. But today I would like to focus a little bit more on one right in particular. This is victims' right to information and the obligation for the member states to set up national victims helplines. According to the new Article 3A of the Victims Rights Directive, member states are obliged to establish the necessary measures to establish easy to use, accessible, user-friendly, secure, free of charge and confidential victims helplines. I will walk you through the provision of Article 3A by responding to 4 questions. The first question: what type of information will be provided by the helpline? 3 types of information will be provided by the helpline. First, victims' rights to information in accordance with Article 4.1 of the current Victims' Rights Directive. So basically, the victims' rights to receive information from the first contact with the competent authorities. So this is this long list of different kind of information that victims must receive, like where to report a crime, what kind of support is available, how to claim compensation, how to request for legal aid, and so on. So all this kind of information. In addition, emotional support, And third, victims must have to be referred to the relevant services, if necessary, including specialized services and specialized helplines, these other helplines that were mentioned here. So for instance, if someone calls the general victims helpline but is a victim of gender-based violence, well, then we have a specialized helpline that has been set up by the EU legislation as well, and the victim will need to be referred to the specialized helpline. Now, the second question, how the helplines can be reached? Helplines must be reachable via harmonized EU-wide 116,006 telephone number, and very, very importantly, via information and communication technologies, including online applications and websites. So I really stress this second part so much, and I can tell you the Commission has been putting all our energy to make sure that the helpline is not only the helpline when you really need to type this telephone number, because I mean, who of you are still using these telephone numbers? Do you take your phone and you type the telephone number to contact someone? No, of course not. We all opening the websites and we press the button and we use different forms of communication. Most of our communication these days is actually via communication that is not number dependable. This OTTs, we use WhatsApps, we use the Signal, we use all kinds of other messages and chat boxes to communicate. We don't use telephone numbers. And when we do the legislation today, we do it for future. We do it for next day, so it must be future-proof. And that's why we've been insisting so much that the Victims Helpline are not only linked to a telephone number, but that there is a whole communication technology behind them, so people can continue communicating in a way that will be appropriate, I don't know, in the next 2 years, 3 years, and 10 years. The third question is in about what languages the helpline must be available. And the answer to this question is, it depends. It depends. It depends whether we are with an impersonal communication, then the victims must receive the information in the official language or languages of the member states. Plus, the member states shall strive to ensure that such information may be available in at least other language widely understood. So the European Parliament was very much insisting that this communication is possible in additional languages than the national language, but that was too difficult for the member states to accept, and hence the result of the discussion is that the member states shall strive to ensure. So let's see how they will be striving to do that. And if the communication is done via information and communication technologies, then the obligation to provide information is in the language that the victim understands. So here it opens up to all possible existing languages, and it will be possible again via using information and communication technologies, via all possible translation services that are available for all of us whenever we communicate online. This type of communication will be reserved to providing information. Only one type of elements is excluded from here. Do you know which one? It is emotional support. So the European co-legislators have figured out that when it comes to emotional support, we need a human. It cannot be done online completely, and it cannot be translated into any type of language. Let's see where the future will bring us. Let's see how this will develop in the next years. But at least this is what we have when it comes to minimum standards that are binding on the member states. The fourth question, and the last one, is by whom the Victims Helpline will be run. And the new legislation says that helplines may be set up by public or non-governmental organizations. And the new legislation also says that it must be operated by appropriately trained persons, and here I highlight persons, who provide quality and accessible support to victims during adequate operating hours. So there is no obligation to have the general Victims Helpline operating around the clock. Article 3 is also accompanied by a recital, the famous recital 5 to the Victims Rights Directive. I don't know if there was any competition for the longest recital that the European legislation has. I think that recital 5 of the revised Victims Rights Directive will be a very strong candidate. The recital is 2 pages long. It's really quite a something. I will, sorry?
Did Lev write it?
Let's say that it's been the result of very long discussions and many contradicting interests from the co-legislators. But the role of the recital is to explain further on what is in the main text of the directive. So the recital indeed explains further what is meant by emotional support, what are the guidelines for choosing the additional language. Here, for your information, very many words were used to say English without saying English. The recital also explains that who are appropriately trained persons. And in this regard, you may want to know that volunteers can be such appropriately trained persons. And the recital also clarifies that for the operation of helplines, the general rules governing victim support services will apply. So it means basically 3 principles: free of charge, confidential, and in the best interest of victims. So I think that you have understood it is quite obvious that a big responsibility in practical application of the helplines will be on victim support services. And in this context, you may also want to know that at the end of the Victims Rights Directive, of the revised directive, there is Article 28b on resources. And this article states that the member states shall ensure sufficient human and financial resources for the effective application of this directive, all of its provision, including the one on the helpline and the role of the support services. This provision, although has a little caveat, and the caveat says, of course, without prejudice to the budgetary autonomy of the member states. So with whatever is available within the national budgets, there must be sufficient resources for ensuring good application of this directive. So this is about Article 3A, Victims Helpline. When it comes to the rest of the directive, the Commission will be presenting the directive more in detail, all of its provisions, in the Commission event on 17th of March. It will be high-level extended victims' rights platform meeting, and I'm glad to see that many of you will attend. I will just wrap up by saying that the introduction of such a robust obligation on helpline in the new Victims' Rights Directive is a substantial gain for victims' rights. It is a big success. This is a big success for the European co-legislators with the help of the European Commission, but this is also a big success for all of you. I know that the victim support organizations led by Victim Support Europe for a long time have pledged for having the Victims Helpline using harmonized number set and operational in all member states. This has happened. It happens because you've been pledging, you've been asking for this for many years, but it also happened because it was obvious for everyone that this is a very useful and important provision, that this is something that works. And you have proved it. I mean, thousands of people who dedicate their time and their effort to supporting victims throughout the European Union have proved the need of having such harmonized standards on Victims Helpline in the EU. So thank you very much for that. And I look forward for the many discussions later on today when we'll be digging more in details into what still needs to be done to ensure that at one point in 2028, this Victims Helpline will be a reality, not only in paper, but also in practice. Thank you.
We're a little bit late, but it's good because the train from Utrecht came also late, and our president, Rosa Jansson, who is the next opening speaker, is here in time, in new time. Rosa is serving her second 3-year term with us and has played a pivotal role to the growth of our organization. A former judge herself, she brings not only wisdom to this organization, but also a little bit of fun and humor. Rosa, the stage is yours, please.
What an expectations. I must say the only thing I bring in this morning is a lot of stress when you're coming by train and you think, oh, I have time enough, I'm here at 8 or something like that, and then the train stands still and another time, so that's, but I'm here. So, and I've heard everything, so that's very important. Yeah, good to see you all. Katja, very nice to see you and to listen to you, because I think it's an honor for me to welcome everyone here on behalf of Victim Support Europe on such a very important day. And in fact, it's the most important day of the year, I think, the European Day for Victims of Crime. And I'm always very proud to say that this day is established by Victim Support Europe in Stockholm in 1919. So I think at that moment we already had a view in the future that this must be the most important day of the year, and I think for all kinds of reasons, because I listened to you, Katja, and I also listened to Mrs. Paulina, and I think when I listen to that and I see the daily practice of Victim Support Europe, but also of the Dutch slachtofferhulp, I think we all live in the same world, then I think we work very, very hard every day, but there's also a lot of work to do. But I think we are not afraid to do that, and we like to fight for it. But sometimes there must be a day that it goes a little bit more easy, I think. And I must say that's why I'm so very glad that finally at the end of 2025 there was the revised Victims Rights Directive. And Katja, I think every time I saw you, I asked for it. You said, yes, we're working very hard on it, but we need to be a little bit patient. That's not one of my best habits, I must say. So, because, and not for me, but I think for so many victims in the world and in Europe, I think it's so important that we have a lot of rules arranged, I think, because I think most of you who work with victims every day know that a lot of people suffer after they have been a victim, and then it should be easy. It must be possible for us to arrange a lot of things, but that's not the easy way we can go always. I think we have to do a lot for that, and then at least it's important that we have some rules and we can make appointments and we have each other. I think that's very important. I always feel under the umbrella of Victim Support Europe that at least I find people who are dealing with the same things, and that makes us, I think, very strong, I think, and we can reach a lot of things. already said that this year the European Day for Victims of Crime is especially very important with the revised Victims Rights Directive provisionally adopted. Every member state is now required to provide especially the 116-006 helpline, and I think we are for a lot of reasons here today, but this is a very special one on this moment, because I think we all long to this special telephone number. It's so nice when you dial it, and it's already possible, I think, in some countries in Europe, and then you arrive in a victim support organization. That's very great. In the Netherlands, when you dial that number, and I do it like this, I think we have a button somewhere on our phone, but then you arrive and you get direct people who understand what it is to become a victim and what are the first needs, and I think that's very important. And I think for today, I think it's very important that we make sure that this victims helpline reaches every corner of Europe, and no victim must be left behind. But we are not that far. I think the helpline must be a sort of beacon for every victim who needs support. I saw on our beautiful banners that we say the same standard, one telephone number, and support for everyone. And I think that's in fact what we all want to have. I must say, I myself, as someone who spent decades on the bench in the Netherlands, I've seen firsthand the profound impact that a reliable helpline can have on a person's recovery. Not searching, not 10 different numbers, but on the same moment, on the right point, in fact, with people who know everything about your needs, or at least can understand, but also can listen to what you want to say. I think in the beginning, it's not that you want to have all the rules and whatever, but the most important things on the first moment, I think, is that someone is listening without judgment. That's mostly the most important thing you want to have on the first day, I think. And then you can go on, and then we can think about legal advices and about compensation, about whatever we have to do for victims. But at the beginning, I think it's so important that you only listen. And I must say, that was when I started to work at Victim Support Netherlands, for me the most important point, because I myself, I came from the judiciary, and I remember that I had a sort of internship, and I was listening to the people who work at Victim Support Netherlands, and I thought, what a strange questions they ask, or strange, they don't ask all the questions, because I was so used to look for evidence all the time, and they didn't ask about, in fact, what happened at all. They just said, what do you need? How can I help you? And then step by step, you saw that people felt better, because there was someone who was not judging, but was just listening. And then step by step, people start to tell what has happened, but it has nothing to do with a sort of legal view. It has to do with people and with people who has been through already a difficult path already. And I think that's for all of us, I think, very important to realize. In the Netherlands, we have already 17 years helpline, like we introduced now. In the beginning we had another telephone number, but now we are on the way. We use both numbers on this moment, but it has to do with the Dutch system. There's nothing to do with the telephone number, but we have to gain for this specific number. So we need to get permission to use it, because it's more or less everywhere. But we will succeed this year, and then we are proud that we use the famous number also, and everyone knows about it. We started in 2009. And I think on this moment, every year, 65,000 people call that number. So it's a huge group of people we are dealing with, and they find us. Of course, you have to put that number everywhere, because you only look for it on the moment that you have been in trouble. It's not that you use that number every day. So it's very important that it is on police stations, that on other offices, that you can find them everywhere. It's on your website and whatever. But then you have to be there, and for us, we are there for 24/7. So all the time it's possible to call. Sometimes we ask them, we listen to them and said, okay, shall we make an appointment on Monday? But at least you have that first contact, and that's so very, very important to offer that to people. And then, of course, we offer emotional support, practical support, and also legal support, because that's in fact what's so important for people. I think on this moment, I also heard you tell that, Sasha, only 14 members use this number. I think that's very pity, because I think there are millions of victims in Europe, and it's so pity that one victim should be left behind. So I think it's very important that we start to use this number, all of us, because then we can be connected all over Europe, and also international. I think it's very important to have it everywhere. So I'm standing in front of it. No, I thought there was a banner behind me with the number, but you know what the number is. I think what for me, I was thinking about today, and I thought, what's so vital, why this helpline is so vital, and I think because it's more than just a service of a call center. When I talk about this number in the Netherlands, people say, "Oh, I understand what you have. You have a call center." But I think a call center is something like a GP. I think you are allowed to be there 10 minutes and then you are thrown out and you can come back next time. But I think for us, I think a helpline like this must be a really service. It must be a place with people who really have time for us. I think that the human part of our service is very important, and I call it a human operating lifeline. I think that's in fact what to try to offer. That's something else than a call center. So maybe it's good for everyone to warn you, don't accept a call center, because people say, oh yes, you have a telephone number, you can call them and you get an answer. No, there has to be really time. I think when you look to the helpline in the Netherlands, and I saw it also in Paris and I saw it everywhere, then you see a lot of people who have time for people who became victim and talk with them, and then they can refer to other organizations or to whatever they need. But on the first moment, we offer them a lot of time, and that's so important. Listen to the story of the victims. And when I was thinking about today, I thought it's also good to realize that there are more helplines, I think, in the world. I hope that we don't establish too much helplines, but it's very nice, for example, because sometimes you have to think out of the box, I've learned. In Spain, for example, they have a poetry helpline. And maybe you say, poetry helpline, when I become a victim, do I need poetry? But in a way, you see that in a creative way, it's good to have another way to contact people. Sometimes it's difficult to ask for help. You have to maybe ask people to come in and try to be contacted with them, because this poetry helpline in Spain is a long-term creative cultural project. And in fact, what they say is, when you don't feel very well or something happened, you can call in and we read a poem for you. It's very strange, I think, for a lot of you. You think, let's start to offer help and not start to deliver poetry. But I think it's a very creative thing to be contacted with people. And I think when you start with a poem, I think the next step is close by. And what's so important is that people, when they listen to you, they feel they have confidence in you, and I think that's very important. So I think we also can think about other ways in which we can be connected with each other. And I found this Spanish model very nice, I must say. It's the first step. In the Netherlands, we started with a lot of helplines. For example, we had the phone for children. That was a big success, I think, 20 or 25 years ago. Children can call with all their questions and just ask questions. On this moment, I think the children telephone is still there, but for example, Victim Support Netherlands also used the helpline for children, especially when children are a part of like a criminal act, or are their parents are in a situation they have questions about. So we have brought it together, and it's more in modules, so you have a sort of combined line, and you can also refer from one line to the other. And I think that's very important. And when I named the poem line, I saw some of your faces. You saw, she's crazy. It's Friday morning, and she's coming with a poem line, and we need more, I think, on this moment of other things. But I think it seemed to be whimsical and even trivial, but I think the lesson is profound. People do not only seek answers and advice in times of need, but they crave human warmth, connection, and also empathy. And that's so important about it, to look to that side before you start to help them, because in the beginning they are traumatized and they don't hear what you are saying on this moment. The only thing is that they want to see and to feel people around them who understand them, and that's why it's so important also to find solution in a creative way. So maybe you don't start with a poem line tomorrow, but keep it in mind, because sometimes it's a good in-between step to come to the next more professional line or whatever we want to introduce. I go on because I only had 7 minutes, I think. 1 minute, oh sorry. These examples, what this teach us is very clear, I think. A well-functioning, accessible service is already a success. That's what you hear from people, even before anyone dials, that you know that there is a number you can use. But equally important is awareness. People, even children, must know how to reach the right number at the right time. It has to be there where you can find it. A simple, trusted and universal action point for everyone affected by crime. And from my perspective as former judge, I want to emphasize this. Victims' rights are not abstract concepts. They are lived realities. And every call answered, every moment of reassurance, every clear instruction provided is a bridge between law and life, and between policy and human experience. And I think that's so important. So today I invite all of you, decision makers, service providers, volunteers, citizens, victim organization, to join the pledge of Victim Support Europe. Let us ensure that 116007 is more than a number. Let us learn from poetry and from every victim who has ever reached out, that accessibility, empathy and trust are the foundations of our work. Let's start with it and not miss one minute. So it's, I think tomorrow, Lev, we are ready, and we speed up, and everything is arranged at the end of the year. Because I heard you said 2028, and I thought, that's the end of the century. We can't wait that long. Thank you very much.
I told that Rosa brings not just wisdom but jokes to our team, and that's the reality. I think I will skip what I was supposed to do now, to present the pledge results. We will keep the suspense until after the coffee break, and then we will see the results. Now, I guess the most important panel of today is going on stage, and this is the panel called Victims' Voices, a Live Conversation. I invite on this stage Larisa Spahic, who is representing our victim care team. She will be having a dialogue with a very special guest, Eileen. Charlotte, please take the stage. Eileen is widely recognized from the Netflix show The Tinder Swindler, and she was named Scam Fight of the Year 2023. The second victim is not present today, victim advocate, in person. Her name is Ruth Maxwell, and she will be joining us via a recorded testimony, and she will reflect on the benefits of this helpline that she used some time ago. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina. Hello, everyone, and it's really nice to see all those familiar faces from many countries around the Europe and beyond. This panel, as you know, it's European Day for Victims of Crime, so it's, I would say, one of the most important panel today, and it's designed to give you a unique and powerful perspective. We are going to hear from those who experienced the crime, unfortunately, and we will try to understand the critical role of the accessible professional support that can play in their recovery, as well as in providing continuous guidelines and care through their journey. As Marina mentioned, today, unfortunately, Ruth Maxwell is not with us. Ruth Maxwell is survivor of a random knife attack in 2016 that left her with life-changing injuries. Her attacker, later convicted of multiple violent assaults, including attempt of rape and sexual assault, is now serving the longest prison in Republic of Ireland for single offender. Ruth is also a member of our Victims Advocate platform. If you did not hear about the platform, we established this platform in 2024. We wanted in Victim Support Europe to hear more from the victims, to provide for them the safe space where we can discuss the things where they can influence our work. Here with us is also another member here, Mubajel Lehman. Thank you very much for coming. And if you are willing to hear more about the platform, feel free to approach me or Mubajel or other colleagues, and we are very happy to tell you more about it. Ruth will share her personal journey and how the 116006 helpline supported her. Her story shows us the real difference that professional accessible help can make when it is needed the most. Following the Ruth testimony, we will move into the live dialogue with Eileen Charlotte, who will reflect on the broader importance of 116006 helpline for victims of crime. Drawing from her experience as a victim's advocate, Eileen will share insights into how the helpline provides equal access to support and empowers victims to navigate the aftermath of crime. As Marina mentioned, Eileen is widely recognized voice against fraud and online scams and had been seen at screens in the Netflix show The Tinder Swindler. She was herself, unfortunately, a victim of romance scam, targeted by the fraudster who scammed millions of dollars from women he met through dating apps such as Tinder. Today, she advocates for a stronger law enforcement response and educates institutions, including the banks, private companies, NGOs, on how to better handle the cases of online fraud. In 2023, she was recognized as a Scam Fighter Person of the Year for her tireless advocacy. Welcome, Eileen, and we are very, very honored to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you are very welcome. We will come back to the questions for Eileen and our dialogue. Now I am calling our comms team to hear the Ruth personal testimony, how she experienced the 116006 helpline in the toughest period of her life. As we began, I invite you to listen with empathy, reflect on the importance of accessible support, and consider how these stories can inform and strengthen advocacy, policy, and practical service in your own work.
My name is Ruth Maxwell, and I'm here today as someone who had reached out to the 116006 Crime Victim Support Helpline after I had suffered a random attack in 2016. I didn't call immediately after the crime. I called later when it became clear that I had to deal with everything on my own. By then I had already contacted several organisations, but each one had a remit and I didn't fit that remit. And it wasn't because of what happened to me, but I just didn't fit into the criteria for particular organisations. And that became clear that I was on my own. Before calling the helpline, I was worn down. I was carrying fear and uncertainty, but also the practical stress of not knowing what my rights were or what to expect next. Everything felt harder because I was trying to figure it all out without any support. But when I contacted the 116006 helpline, everything changed. I wasn't questioned or redirected. I wasn't made to explain why other doors had closed. I was listened to and I was taken seriously. The support was both human and practical. The guidance I received, including information about the court process, helped me feel more prepared at a time when I felt anything but. Back in 2017, the helpline was my only support. It was my lifeline. And I know I'm not the only one. And for many victims across Europe, it can be the first and only place to turn to. That call didn't change what happened to me, but it did change how isolated I felt. It gave me something solid to hold on to when everything else felt uncertain. So my message is simple. Support should not depend on fitting into a single category, and services like the 116006 Crime Victim Support Helpline is there no matter what category you are in or not in, and they will support you and they will direct you to the areas relevant to your situation. And an organisation like this matters because it gives the ability to really support everyone, and particularly those victims of crime that are stranded and have nowhere to turn to. And their lifeline to so many people. They really are. And the confidence that I have in my life from my experience in dealing directly with the 116006 helpline is unbelievable. It carries me through. And when I think back with that time of having the support for them for a number of years, it does bring a smile to my face because I was no longer isolated, alone, and desperate. It was like somebody had just lifted me up and told me that it will be okay, there is help. Just reach out and call the line, and that will change your life. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Ruth is not today with us, but we are really grateful for whole her contribution and advocacy work for the victims of right. Now, speaking about the advocacy work, I would like to start, Eileen, with one a bit personal question. You transfer a deeply personal experience into the public advocacy. What was the turning point for you to make you decide to speak out about your experience?
Well, after the fraud happened, I didn't felt any shame. So I immediately shared my story with my friends and my family. And at that point, they became my beacon of trust. And during a certain time and during my healing, I was reached out to be part of the documentary. And I had to think about it for quite a few months, like 8 to 9 months. But then suddenly I I got this light, and I thought, you know what? If I keep my mouth shut, then everything will be in the advantage of my fraudster, of the criminal. So that's when I turned into the documentary and I shared my story. But I never expected that it would be exploding. And after the documentary, I said to the whole Netflix team, to everyone, like, hey, I got my dream job. I don't want to be in the media. I don't want to do interviews. Just leave me alone. The documentary is out there. My story is out there. And I hope I can warn people for not dealing with this criminal. But then the messages came in. I heard people telling me that they thought I was so that I had so much courage for sharing my story that maybe they lost a loved one on fraud. Other people ask me like, hey, how did you get over this horrible experience? And then I started to realize that maybe my voice is the voice people need, and it was also the voice I missed when I became a victim. And that was the main reason as well to be an advocate for this horrible crime. And thank God also the documentary together gave a little stage for that.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it means a lot for those who are unable to speak out, to encourage them, or at least to know that there is someone there who experienced similar crime and who is speaking out. So many of victims who are unable to do that are, I think, very much grateful for that voice. So thank you very much. Another question for you is what misconceptions about the scam victims do you most often encounter, and how do you challenge them?
Unfortunately, with scams and fraud, it's not visible. The hurt, the pain, the shame, the losses are not visible. People think that you only got a few money stolen from you and that's it. But people have absolutely no idea what's going behind there. The emotional damage, the emotional coercion. And this is something I really wanted other people to understand, that fraud is not visible. It's in here. And because it's in here, there are so many people who don't understand how hurtful it is. Because every single time when I have to explain that I got stolen out of 180,000 euros, I had to find out that my boyfriend cheated on me. I had to find out that everything I was living in that relationship was a complete lie. For 1.5 years, the person I loved was a complete lie. He never existed. And you have to find out all in once. When the balloon pops, you go into so many emotional, like a roller coaster. And people thought or saying to me like, but you only lost some money. And I'm like, first of all, I didn't lost it. I was targeted. And the money got stolen from me. And when I rephrase that word from losses to stolen, then people are like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, this is what it is. Fraud or scams are a break-in to your trust, and they rob you from everything you have. And when we start to understand this, that's the moment when you see a change in people's faces. But to understand it, you need to explain it very carefully, because this is the misconception. It's like, oh, you lost some money and you're fraud. He never existed. Well, move on. No, this is not how it works. And if we look at the numbers as well, there are so many people who are living in shame, don't want to share their story, but this has all to do with the response in our society. People feel stupid. No, you're not stupid. You're targeted. Your emotional they played with your emotions to keep you acting to give money. So first of all, you're a target, and then you are robbed with everything you have, your finances. Some even people share that they have lost their house to scams. So this is not something what you need to be misunderstanding about this, because it's so much more than only losing money or stolen money.
Indeed. Thank you very much for highlighting the layers of the online scam that can influence every victim. I think many, especially society, is not aware of all those layers, especially the emotional impact that has on the victim, unfortunately, and that can sometimes even bring the person to suicidal thoughts, unfortunately. So all those layers are very much important to think when dealing with the victims of scam, indeed. Now we will switch a bit to the helpline, and I do have questions related to that. As a victims advocate, can you share your insights why services like 116006 helpline are so important for the victims of scam, especially crimes that bring some stigma like romance scams, and how they can help victims overcome feeling isolated and shamed?
Yes, well, like I just shared, the fraud itself didn't bring me, well, they bring me mental damage, but the aftermath of the fraud was the worst experience of my life. Because when I reached out, I was strong enough to reach out to the banks. I was strong enough to reach out to organizations. And the problem is that I wasn't taken seriously. People told me, oh, why aren't you selling your house? Then you will be rid of all your debts. Even fraud departments of the bank told me, oh, but you transfer the money yourself, so what do you want from me? And if you are reaching out to organizations who needed to support you during this horrible crime, and they are not listening to you and you are not feeling heard, then you become victim again and again and again. And with every phone call I made during that aftermath of the fraud, I became again a victim. And like you already said, there are people, or Ruth said it, when you are feeling in between, or when you are falling in between the rules of being supported, like for example me, the year in the fraud, I earned too much money to get financial and legal support, which is crazy. I was in debt over my head. And that's why people said to me like, hey, but why aren't you selling your house? And I'm like, do you really think that's a solution for my problems? Yes, maybe I can pay off all the debts I have, but then what? I need to sleep in a tent? You know, like that's not a solution. And I truly believe, and that's the reason why I'm also here, is that we really need to put this phone number out there, because when there are specialized people, specialized trained people out there who can only listen to a story and you feel heard, it already gives you more motivation, but also more, it brings back your confidence as well. Because if you are targeted by if you are already targeted as a fraud victim, and then you are also not taken seriously by the banks and or official institutions, and your self-esteem will go away. And that's the reason where shame is coming up. Because if you are sent away, then 9 out of 10 people are like, you know what, I'm not going to call or have this phone call again. You know, have to deal with it myself and, you know, move on. But the only problem with that is your mental state, and the healing process will only be longer. So we have more traumatized people in our society. And that's why this phone number is so essential and it's so needed, because when the shame comes up with people and they still have this phone number they can reach out to, where they feel when they hang up, they feel much better, they feel supported, they maybe know what to do. They get these tools to take those steps, to file a police report or to maybe share your story with your friends and family. It's so important for your healing process. And therefore, I'm rooting for this phone number.
Thank you very much. Speaking about the line, and if the victims are the one who will design that line instead of the professionals, what would be changed, and what do you think is very important to take in consideration? You had some experience like calling some lines, and from like your experience, but also what do you think what is very important aspect here?
I think what is very important is to have people working in those behind those lines who were victim as well, because it's so much easier to talk to someone who have experienced the same, or at least have experienced something like you as well. So, and that's already the first step for not feeling alone. And for not feeling isolated. So it's very important to reach out to victims, to maybe employ for these type of
experience. Indeed. You just remind me for one statement when we were in the meeting with Victims Advocate platform, and one member told, we are all victims of something, and we can draw from the experience in that sense. I don't know, last weekend I was almost like stolen the purse in that sense. So I think we all have some kind of experience that we can feel more empathic when supporting the victims, when we are creating the policies for the victims as well. Speaking about your experience, and I know that you are providing some trainings for the banks, for different institutions. So from your perspective, what responsibilities should tech companies and financial institutions take, not only in prevention, but also in ensuring victims are quickly referred to support services like 116006 helpline?
Well, this is the reason why I created SAFE. I developed a training for financial institutions, organizations, to have specialized people who know how to deal with victims of fraud. Because, like I just shared with you, when I reached out, nobody had any clue how to deal with my story or me. And I survived, but we also talk about the fact that people feel so isolated, so ashamed that sometimes these stories can end up with suicide. And that's like the worst of the worst. And if we look at fraud and scams, 67% of all victims have PTSD symptoms. And if you are talking to them in not an empathetic way or not in an understanding way, it can only damage them more. And that's why I created a training course as well for institutions to understand better how to talk to victims of fraud and how to communicate with them, how to support them, to listen to them. And like you, I think Rosa mentioned it, there need to be people on these lines who have time. Because if we look at banks, if we look at financial institutions, they have KPIs. It's like they only have 10 minutes. They only have 2 minutes for the aftermath of the conversation, and then they need to move on. But if I share my example, my story was 1.5 years of full manipulation. 1.5 years of 180,000 euros lost or stolen money. Do you think that if I call to the bank, because I found out myself, so I was the one who reached out to the bank, do you really think that if they have a KPI of 10 minutes, they were empathetic to me? No. But this response can only make people feel more got more into their PTSD, have more emotional damages. And this is why it's so important to have trained people and people who are already experienced something like this, who know how to be treated when someone else is calling.
Indeed, indeed. That's a very, very good aspect, and I think many of us are really trying our best to provide as much as possible training. Also, those training on specific issues, as for example, online scam, is also very important, and it's also connected to the next question. When legislation and law enforcement struggles to keep pace with the digital crime, how important is it that victims still have access to immediate independent support through service like 116006?
Well, if we look at the landscape where we are in now, is that so many things are, and so many conversations are held by bots or chats, or even on the phone. You hear AI voices, and what is still needed for a victim is the human interaction, the questioning, even if they are just silent for maybe 12, 15, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. There's still a human being on the other side of the line, and it's so important. We still need that human interaction to heal from our traumas.
Yeah, indeed, and that emotional aspect, as Katarzyna mentioned, is very much important, and it's actually first step when you speak with a victim to provide, space and emotional support, and then to come to the point where they need that practical, concrete support and help them with that. I think I know, I see Marina is flagging me that we don't have much time, but I would like to ask you the last question to wrap it up a bit. So Eileen, drawing on your personal experience and your work advocating against online fraud and romance scams, what message would you like to share today with the policymaker, institutions, but also with the survivors to strengthen support, prevent victimization, and empower those who are affected?
Well, first of all, I know we live in a world where we all have budgets, but please don't have budgets on victims, because yeah, a big one, a big budget, that's okay, but not like we need to cut. No, please don't cut on the mental support and the healing of a victim, because what we want is all to move on and be more stronger than ever, and to come back in society again after a horrible crime. So please don't budget on that. And for the rest, I really want to say that, but this is only from as well my own experience, is please share your story, start talking, because the moment you start talking is the moment you start healing. And don't be victim blaming. Don't look at people like they're stupid, because nobody is stupid. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that powerful message, indeed. So thank you very much, Eileen, for sharing your experience and insights with us today. Together with the root testimony, we've seen that real impact that crime can have on the people, and how important accessible professional support like 116006 Helpline is in helping victims to recover, feel heard, and get the help they need. We've also seen how powerful victim voices can be in challenging misconceptions, shaping service, and influencing the policy. The 116006 Helpline shows what equal, high-quality support looks like, no matter the type of the crime or its stigma. This session is a part of the Victim Support Europe 2026 campaign on 116006 Helpline. It reminds us all to strengthen the support system, listen to the victims, and give them the tools to rebuild their lives. Finally, thank you to both Ruth, of course, and Eileen, and all of you here for your courage and dedication, and to all of you and for your work, everyday work that you are facing. Let's continue to lift their voices and to make professional, accessible support a reality for every victim across Europe. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eileen. Thanks a lot, Larissa. We will be having a chance to speak with both of the characters during our coffee break. But before the coffee break, I would invite your passion to listen to one more session, which will be moderated by our policy manager, Eftimis Antonopoulos. And this session is dedicated to 116 helplines, not 006, but other European helplines. And Eftimis will analyze with not the operators of those helplines, but representatives on how those helplines work. Efti, please, the stage is yours.
Okay, Kalimera, good morning. So I'm truly pleased to welcome you to this panel. Today's symposium is a central moment in VSC's 2026 campaign calling for equal, high-quality victim support across the European Union through the establishment of and the operation of the 116006 helpline. Our panel is titled EU Helplines. Okay, we will not focus only on 116 because we have a guest that they run a different helpline in Belgium. This session is about what happens when reality becomes when policy becomes operational, what happens in real life, and what it actually takes to make harmonized helpline function in daily practice. We will explore some concrete examples, what works well, what are the challenges, what risks are not taken into account in the Brussels meeting rooms, and what does the network do in order to ensure the accessible and high quality support across borders. The discussion is particularly timely, as the EC Coordinator for Victims' Rights mentioned before. The revised Victims' Rights Directive introduced a clear obligation to member states to ensure the availability of the helpline through the harmonized number, and also other secure communication technologies like applications, online applications and websites. At VSC, our goal is to actively support all the helpline operators through certain expertise and good practices and knowledge, and our standards that will be communicated later in the panel hosted by our Deputy Director. So I'm very happy to be joined in this panel by representatives from Missing Children Europe, La Strada International, Vlaams Meldpunt, the Flemish Reporting Center for Transgressive Behavior, and also we will have a video message from Child Helpline International. So before we begin, we want this session to be very practical, very short as well. And yes, because I see that you're kind of tired and you want to enjoy the treats, the croissants, the cookies, they're delicious. So after that, we will open the floor to your questions. Before that, we will have some presentations from our panelists and some pre-guided questions. The aim is not to repeat what is written in some reports, but also to see what's happening in real practice and to hear operational truth. Without further ado, let us start with a video message from Helen Mason, Executive Director of Child Helpline International. Floor manager, yes.
Hello, I'm Helen Mason. I'm the Executive Director of Child Helpline International, speaking to you today from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And I'm very sorry that I can't be with you in person today. And I'd like to thank Victim Support Europe for the invitation to your meeting. I would like to deliver a short video message about the 116-111 harmonized number for child helplines, currently operational in 23 of the 27 European Union member states. Now, we're in a unique position to share and talk about the 116-111 from the perspective of Child Helpline International. And I would like to share with you today information about the core quality standards that have been developed. These core quality standards have been identified by the members of our network and designed to provide a self-assessment for child helplines around the world to monitor the quality of their services. It's really important across the European region to have these core quality standards in place because, of course, the child helplines that are using the same number would like to ensure the same level of quality across the region. So these core quality standards have been identified together with our network members and cross across 9 different areas. According to our framework, high quality child helplines are 1, rights-based, 2, advocates for children, 3, facilitators of meaningful child and youth participation, 4, reliable, 5, safe, 6, accessible, and 7, child-centered, 8, accountable, and 9, responsibly and effectively operated in emergency settings. So as you can hear, these core quality standards cover the main operations of a child helpline. And as I mentioned before, these are monitored through a self-assessment process. And these are monitored annually by our Child Helpline members, giving Child Helpline International the insight into how those quality standards are attained, but also where the gaps in capacity building might be, so that we can come with different opportunities for training and to build the capacity to attain the core quality standards. As I say, I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but if you would like to know more about our core quality standards, or indeed any of the work that we do, as well as the data we collect from our Child Helpline members across Europe, please do check out our website and feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. So the message highlights the importance of core quality standards. The standards are not abstract concepts, but they guide how the resources are allocated and how the services are structured. Hold on to that thought because, as I said previously, later on today we will return to the discussion on the standards. Let me now welcome our first speaker. Bonjour. Léamandre Chaudrin, Advocacy Manager at sorry if I mispronounced it. Advocacy Manager at Missing Children Europe. She leads the organization's advocacy and policy efforts to ensure that the rights of missing children are reflected in child protection systems across Europe. She has extensive experience also in victim support, and she's here today to speak to us about the network of the 000 helpline. Thanks.
Many numbers today to remember. Hello everyone. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about Missing Children Europe, the European Federation for Missing and Sexually Exploited Children. We were founded in 2001 through the cooperation of different national missing children organizations. So missing children organizations were already, of course, working at the national level, but some of them in different countries decided to join together, especially after the Dutroux case in '96 in Belgium. There was this wake-up call that protection of children and prevention of children going missing is very important, and that there is a need of international cooperation, European cooperation, for the prevention and protection of these children. So today we represent 35 member organizations in 28 European countries, and 23 of our members are running the 116-000 hotlines for missing children. So this number was created by the European Commission. We saw in the video earlier in 2007. It was the first of this 116 number to be created. And it was also supported at the time by the European Commission through European funding. So thanks to this European funding, the Daphne program, the number is available now in all EU, in all 27 EU member states, which is not the case of the 006 helpline. We also, so the helpline is accessible for anyone concerned by a missing children case, be a family, parents, but also children. The hotline is available for anyone. Free number, anonymous number, accessible 24/7 in most countries. Should I continue? Yeah? So in terms of some numbers to give you, so every year we collect data from our hotlines. I've brought some of our reports that you can find on the tables. We collect data through a figures and trends report. unfortunately, it doesn't reflect reality. We tried to collect some data on the number of cases, point of contacts, but as you know, and as it's the case also for victims of crime, many people don't come forward, may not contact helplines, may fall through some gaps. So these are some of the numbers that we collect. To give you a rough estimate, more than 6,000 new cases of missing children were open in 2024. 65 of these cases represent children who run away. So that's the majority of the cases that are dealt with by our hotlines are about running away. But there are also other categories such as parental abduction, children lost in migration, also cases of child sexual abuse. I think I will stop here for now.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Lea. So next, I'm pleased to welcome Irina Ionita, a researcher at La Strada International. Irina has an academic background in law psychology. She has been working the past 2 years in La Strada International, focusing on data collection, the non-punishment principle, and the exploitation of persons displaced from Ukraine. Important to mention is that La Strada International, back in 2008-2009, conducted a feasibility study for the European Commission on the possibility of for establishing a 116 number for trafficking in human beings. So, Irina, you have 3 to 4 minutes in order to present roughly your work with La Strada, and we will continue.
Thank you. Does it work? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I know it was very last minute, but luckily we managed. So at La Strada International, we are 32 organizations for combating human trafficking. We represent 24 European countries, so also outside the EU. Most of our members have a helpline, and some of them also run 24 hours. Some of them are also toll-free. The consultants provide information on destination countries, including information about national situation and legislation of these countries, useful telephone numbers, safety tips, and possibilities of help in case of emergencies. If needed, also referrals can take place to other services. Some of our members are part of the children helpline, like La Strada Moldova and La Strada Ukraine. La Strada Ukraine also has a helpline for children and youth that has recently, luckily, found funds again to keep this running. But also now with the war in Ukraine, a line for psychological assistance for men. We also have a member, it was earlier showed at the beginning in the opening video, that is part of the victim support helpline. It's our member in Finland, Riku. And we also have members who have missing children helplines, such as Open Gate from Macedonia and Astra from Serbia. As Eftimis mentioned before, we conducted a feasibility study funded by the European Commission for a helpline for victims of trafficking. And in a nutshell, the result of the study was that it might not be as advantageous to have a helpline for victims of human trafficking. And one reason behind this is that a lot of victims do not identify themselves as victim of trafficking. So there is, people do not self-identify, and they might reach out to other helplines, and then they are referred to our members or to anyone who can support their situation.
Thank you. So last but certainly not least, Annick de Blauwe, coordinator at the Vlaams Meldpunt. The center supports people facing physical or psychological transgressive behavior, including cyberbullying, sexual assault, unwanted sexual behavior. Often such behavior is subtle and cumulative, and victims only later realize that their boundaries have been crossed. So, Annick, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. The Flemish Reporting Center for Transgressive Behavior was founded in September 2023. We are an independent point of contact for persons with a question or a report of transgressive behavior that happened or occurred in an organization within the Flemish competentions such as sport, youth, culture, media, education, but also in private organizations. We aim to be complementary to existing services and support systems. Our mission is to receive reports or complaints of transgressive behavior and follow up on them appropriately, to monitor and to map reports of transgressive behavior, and to formulate policy advice to organizations or to sectors or to policy in general. Who can report? Not only victims, but also witnesses, relatives, third parties, organizations, professionals, or alleged perpetrators. What do we understand under transgressive behavior? Physical or psychological violence, bullying, and unwanted sexual behavior. What can we offer? We listen to everybody who contacts us in the first place, so that we have in common with a helpline. We identify the reporter's needs. We clarify the possible actions, provide recognition and support, refer to or support or follow up on sector-specific procedures. We can offer restorative mediation. We can offer short-term psychological support, and we do a warm referral. And I think that's the end of my story. Yeah, I have. You can contact us by a contact form on our website, by email. We have a chat, accessibility, and a telephone number, free of charge.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move to a moderated Q&A. Mostly we will have about up to 3 questions, based on also the time that we have. So first question, it's a question that is for the 3 of you. Who still struggles most to access the helpline, even when the number is free and well known, such as undocumented migrants, children, people with disabilities, men, older victims, or others, and why this happens according to the experience that you have? Lea, do you want to go first? Thanks.
Although we're called Missing Children Europe, and the hotlines for missing children, we see that children are still a very small part of the callers of the hotlines. In the figures of last year, 77% of the callers were adults, and only 16% were actual children. So this really shows you also the differences in that sense of the accessibility of the hotlines, and also the visibility, the awareness raising on the hotlines. We also did accessibility assessment of our hotlines in the past years, and some of our hotlines responded to the survey, and 75% stated that they offer support through other means than just the hotline, so as well emails or web form, text messages as well, so to diversify the means of communication and accessibility of the hotlines. Persons with disabilities, I think, are also more struggling to reach the hotlines, but some of our hotlines are putting in place specific tools, such as language interpretation, visual services, for example, for deaf children or adults. Some members are also trying to enhance the accessibility of the hotlines through multilingual services, interpretation services, but also some training for their staff on gender-sensitive response, cultural sensitive response, and also our members are also sometimes partnering with other civil society organizations working with vulnerable groups in order to be able to reach also more people.
Thank you. Annick?
The reporting point is at this time struggling to reach people with disabilities. because of the subject we work on, because transgressive behavior, people with some disabilities don't always recognize what means transgressive behavior, and they don't always have the means to report it or to be noticed. And that's, yeah, we are searching, but we only exist for 2 years. We have a decree legal formed, and it's only since June last year that it's approved. So we have the first year and a half we were experimenting, but we did a lot of good work. But now we have to put extra effort to reach the people we don't reach yet.
So in terms of victims of human trafficking, as I mentioned before, a lot of them do not self-identify. So it's hard for them to maybe search for the number, but maybe they just don't know what to search for. And another issue is that they might not have access to a phone. It often happens that they are kept in isolation, so it's really hard for them to reach out. And another issue would be trust. They might not trust the hotline. Maybe they have a previous bad experience in their home country, or with a different hotline, or not necessarily hotline, but trying to reach out. And they might be scared, for example, when it comes to undocumented persons, they might be scared that the calls are being monitored. So they are really hesitant in that sense. We do not see a specific group facing difficulties reaching out, but in general, this would be the issues that we hear from our members. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. So next question is, how do you use / interpret or analyze data without losing the human story behind its call? And I don't know, who wants to start? Okay.
So as I mentioned, we collect this data from our members. They themselves collect a lot of data from the calls they receive. But of course, every number, every data has a story behind, has a person behind, be it a child or an adult. So of course, we need data to drive policy change, to ask for more funding. We need to show numbers. But the human story behind it is very important. And I think the panel before was one of the most powerful story you can have, to have the actual people speaking about their story. Missing Children Europe is very lucky also to have a youth board. One of our representatives is also in the room today. I'm very happy. And we work also with these young people with lived experience of going missing in their childhood, or of being victim of violence in their childhood, to also be able to bring their voice to policymakers, to bring more human side to all the numbers and the boring policy recommendations that we are asking. However, data allow us to examine patterns, to identify different trends, and being able also then to build better prevention measures and policy recommendation. So per category of missing children, on children running away, parental abduction, abduction by a third party, children in migration, we try to disaggregate some sort of data that we can use, of course, for our reporting, but also to influence some policy decisions. There is also, I think, a risk of collecting too much data. We don't need so many personal data on a case. We don't need excessive personal details or data that could also stigmatize a person. So that's, I think, very important. Collecting data also without re-traumatizing the person behind the story.
We also collect a lot of data because we're installed in an agency of the government, Vlaamse overheid. So we always will have to collect data. But we use the data especially to be able to adapt our work. When we collect data and we see how we don't reach enough men or enough women, we try to look how can we reach them, with who can we talk, what kind of offer do we give, to who give we that special kind of offer? Is it to women? Is it to men? Is it to adults, minors? So we try to use the data we collect to adapt our work and make it better every day. We go further. We also have a report of the story of the people. That we don't use for policy. That's for us, for my colleagues who work with the people, and to always be able to remember what people have told us, because people we work, we have dossiers of people. So I think we have an average of 20 cases at the same time we handle. And that's very important when you contact someone. You always good to remember what was your story, what did happen to you, and how are we able to help you.
So the way we collect data at LSI, we conduct an annual data collection. We do not only include helpline numbers, helpline calls, but some of our members, when they report data, they also do that. We use most of the data for advocacy, as it was previously mentioned, our data report. But what we also do is have case assessment reports that we publish on our website as well. And of course, all the stories are anonymized, so you cannot identify the persons, but we want to make sure that their stories are being heard and are being read by policymakers. So this is one way that we collect the data, we collect the stories, the numbers, but we also give the story behind these numbers.
Thank you. So there is one more question for the panelists from my side, but since we want this to be more dynamic and engaging, I will pass to you. Are there any questions from the floor? No? Yes, I mean, look.
Yeah.
Of course.
Look at the pretty mic. It matches. It was on purpose. Thank you. No, thank you so much for all your presentations. It's very important to discuss all of these themes, especially with this umbrella of the unique numbers. But we are all the time talking about like right calls, or calling the right number, or calling the right service. Or people don't know they are victims of a crime, but for you to even know or understand that you are a victim, or just realize that you are a victim of a crime, it's a long way, I think, in the process. So, and Leah, you mentioned something very important, which are helplines are making other solutions available. Email, distance support, I don't know, social networks. Is this the case also in the other services, that you realize you have to be there in different ways or different approaches, so that when someone needs, you know, to get help, at least they are able to get it? What are your experience in the field? I know you just started. Thank you so much for being here, and good luck for everything. You have a support community here, so reach out whenever you need.
Maybe I can try to answer from what I know from our members. A lot of our members also do outreach work. So there are certain risk sectors, for example, for labor exploitation, they are trying to reach out to factories and workplaces that are of high risk. So this is how people find out about us. Some of them also, I know they started to have chatbots, or they are trying to invest more in this. Some of them are also trying to work with embassies, for example, in case of exploitation by officials. That's also a very sensitive issue, and they are trying to collaborate more with embassies. I don't know if I think also generally with police. Some of our members have a really good relations with the police, and also when the police is doing checkups, sometimes members from our organizations are also present there. Yeah.
At the reporting point, we added new work because in Belgium there are a lot of helplines. Before I did this work, I worked for the Helpline 1712. It's the helpline for, okay. You know also that the Helpline 1712 you can call and you get an advice where to go to. I noticed during that work that some people don't have enough with just the advice, you can call this number. They have to do it on their own. With the reporting point, I could make a difference because we have dossiers. It's not a helpline. We call it a reporting point. That's not a good name, but I don't think there exists a name that says you give information, you do referrals, so you're a helpline, but you also have a service. So we see people also physically. We start up dossiers. We go along with people. So we ask what happened to you? What do you want to do? Can you do it on your own, or do you need help? And how long do you need help? And we go along as long as they need us. We also empower to help them find someone in the network. But that's not everyone has a network, unfortunately. But we also have a very good cooperation with different help services, CAW, CGG, but we also work together with organizations, the sectors, because in Flanders a lot of sectors have internal reporting points. But people don't always get access to the reporting points, and people sometimes are scared to act when someone tells them, I'm a victim of transgressive behavior. And we help victims to knock on doors. Our work is, it's not obligated. We don't have, we can't sanction organizations, but because of our, we offer cooperation, we offer also support for organizations to deal with situations. And we chose explicitly not to only have a telephone number, but also chat, also the contact form, and people can also report anonymously.
One important work of our member and hotlines is also the sensibilization, awareness raising on the hotlines. Of course, different countries will do it very differently, but for example, Child Focus in Belgium, one of our founding members, is very active at different events. For example, I was at a festival last year and there was a stand actually of Child Focus. to also being able to be known by the public. I think one of the most difficult parts of the work of a hotline is to be known by the public. How do you find a number? So if this number is seen as much as possible in public spaces, in the public transport, in airports, you name it, I think that's also where you manage to get this number in the head of the people so that they know who to reach out when the help is needed.
Thank you. Yes, Alex.
I signaled for a mic. I think someone's going to get me a glass of water or coffee or something. This question is actually for you, Annick. So you mentioned 1712. You also mentioned the center that you work in, which kind of, I think that the competencies of the two are, for me, and I'm a victim support professional, difficult to kind of distinguish. There will also be 116006 coming up. I know that Belgium will have a big challenge there. So how do you, as someone who operates, how do you tackle this kind of overlaps between competencies? Is there a smooth referral process where you can just transfer the phone to 1712, or you have to hang up and tell them you call the colleagues? And how do you also imagine 116006 slotting in there?
Yeah, only for the chat, we are able to transfer to another helpline. Telephone is not possible yet. We try to, but in Belgium we also always, almost always have different kind of technical systems. I know now that 1712 uses WebEx, but before we had just a Proximus number, but because I'm working with the government, we had to change provider, and since we changed provider, we are now a call center. So it's not technically fit for a helpline, so we have to stay strong together and help each other to claim for victims you need another that is not a call center with transfers and a music they put on when you say when one of the operators is busy, give us a text and says operator is busy, can you call later? No, they put on a happy music, and you don't know it before, but we work together with all the help services. We are making appointments to how to work together to get, if we say no wrong door principle. It's very important that if someone calls us instead of the helpline 1712, that who calls us doesn't notice, doesn't have noticed that he or she called the wrong number. We are easily being reached because of the term transgressive behavior. For a few years now, it's a very common word. Also, so people look us up because we didn't have a campaign yet. We will have a campaign on 10 March. We start, but there was a big scandal in Belgium in November. There was a gynecologist who had abused several women. We had reporter 0 a year before, and we had a long way with that victim to be able to speak about it, and that was a very good commercial for the reporting center. But we work together with sectors, with het middenveld, the level in between, organizations, policy makers to yeah, that they know us. But we have a very good, I say, when our offer, it was warm referral. And that warm is, sometimes we call another service and we say, this is someone of who we think that has to be arrive with you. How do we get them? And if it's necessary, we go with them.
Thank you. One last question from the audience. No? Okay, so this brings us to the end of our session. If there is one key takeaway from this discussion, it is that accessible and victim support is not a luxury, it is a right, and every victim in every EU member state should be able to access support services by dialing 116006. A warm round of applause for our ladies, and thank you very much for the engagement. Enjoy the coffee break.
Three important remarks. Antonio, is the door closed? We encourage all of you to stay until the end of the event. Because
if you want to leave, make a donation to BSC.
Because, first of all, we are asking for donations. Our team is full of animals. We printed out a calendar with all of our animals, and we sell those calendars for €5. It's a calendar for 2026. Second thing, our photo artist, and Larissa, she's also a photo artist, they're selling, for the benefit of Victim Support Europe, their photos, €10 each. Please buy those things. It's first announcement. Second announcement, after the coffee break, there will be some surprise gifts for some of you. So please stay, the door anyhow is closed. And then the third thing, pledge will be presented, and 2 inspirational sessions. One is by our Deputy Director, Alexandra Ivankovich, who has finally, the central stage is hers. And the second session is by Levin Taltan, who will put under pressure 3 operators from around Europe, 116 helpline operators, I mean. So thank you very much, and enjoy the coffee break, which is very short, until 11:45. It is the time, a very exciting moment of giving the prizes. Please take your seats. We are excited to take a moment to promote our newsletter. We have analyzed the 2025 statistics of the newsletter and realized that there are people in this room who are our long-term subscribers and they read our newsletters. So we would like to give a special supporter label, star supporter, here it is, to 6 people in this room. And the 6 people are, the first one is Karima Dush. Please welcome to this stage.
Thank you.
The next person is Marin Uldri.
She's not here.
She's not here, okay. The third person is Sara de Valkenare. Miriam Hanfeld.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Luca Dudic. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. And the last person is James McGavin. Oh my God, this is the person who always takes our prizes.
I still have to use the last one, yes? Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to everyone for supporting our newsletter. I would like to encourage everyone to subscribe to the newsletter because we are going to publicize soon a lot of interesting open calls to submit your proposals to various events and projects. So please do so. The QR code is on the screen. Now, the next session is interpreting the pledge signatures. And here comes an important visual to understand where we got so far. So we launched our pledge exactly 2 months ago in December 19. And we've got, it would seem, nothing. Only 1,070 up till today signatures. But the trick is that those individual signatures, they are backed up and are represented, let's say first, by the frontline practitioners. So 80% of those signatures are the signatures of executive directors or managers of victim support services from around Europe and not only Europe. On top of that, the pledge is formally endorsed by 24 Victim Support Europe's member organizations, collectively supporting 2.17, this is the exact number, millions of victims of crime. So basically, they signed it on behalf of the victims they support. It's important to note that this pledge doesn't create demand for the helpline. The demand is already there, as we understand. What the helpline would do is offer a single entry point to an already functioning system, because, as you can see, the support services endorse this pledge. Now let's talk about the countries. We see that out of the countries where the helpline doesn't exist, 6 have endorsed the pledge. And those 6 countries are represented by main national support organizations. In Belgium, it's CAV, a core pillar of the Flemish and the Brussels system. Greece is represented by the Smile of the Child, a nationally recognized support organization. Spain, Atenin, providing also structured support at regional and national levels. Italy, Rete Daphne and Libra Services, representing coordinated national frameworks. Cyprus, Third Age Observatory, a key national actor. And in Poland, it's Droga, an established victim support service. What this means is, it's clear, in nearly half of the countries lacking 116.006 helpline, the call for its establishment comes directly from the main actors, existing victim support services. Finally, the pledge is not just endorsed by the European actors. It has attracted global support from civil society actors across Asia, North America, Africa, including South Korea, Canada, USA, and so on and so forth. Organizations like Victim Support Asia represent multiple countries in Asia, showing that this movement is part of the broader global civil society effort. In conclusion, the pledge demonstrates, first, strong practitioner and organizational backing. Second, existing operational demand for the 116.006 helpline. And the third, global civil society engagement. It's important to mention that we are not closing this pledge at this moment. We are going to reframe the narrative, let's say, and continue gathering more signatures when we will be following up the advancement, yes, of those numbers in all 13 member states where it doesn't exist. So now I would like to invite to this stage Alexandra Ivankovich. She is going to present her team's long-term work on establishing the standards for this helpline. We've got now a solid book of standards that we are promoting, and Alexandra is going to take this challenge to pitch the standards so that we all understand what the standards are. So, Alex, the floor is yours.
We are going digital, so I don't have it fully printed. But, well, thank you, Marina. Thanks, colleagues, for Juliette is trying to hurt me. Ça va, c'est bon. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'll stay here. I'm going to take it out. So, risk assessment and safety first. So, thank you all for coming, and thank you for your interest in 116006 helplines and in making sure that all victims, as we have already promoted the event, have access to one number, one standard, and equal support for every victim. So before I go into standards, maybe just to go back to ask why. And Kasia in her intervention already gave us a good background, and obviously the Commission and the EU legislator had thought about it. And it's really about, we are all promoting Europe as a united continent, as 27 countries providing equal access, equal rights, equal services to their citizens. And then we have the 2007 decision, we have the 116006 number, but we actually have only 14 numbers in 14 member states. And even when we look into, and all of these 14 organizations that provide helplines are members of Victims Support Europe. And when we talk to these organizations that actually provide helpline, we understand that there's such a divergence of access. There's difference in how organizations and helplines promote themselves. There's a difference in the level of services. There's a difference in how they train their staff, whether they have staff, they work with volunteers. So there's so much differences, and the idea is that wherever you are in the EU, you should be able to call 116006 and have an expectation of getting the same minimum level of quality of service. And so when we're talking about it, when we were already when we started advocating for 116006 across the EU, the thinking was around how do we actually make sure that all victims get the same level of quality of service, that they don't get turned away, that they have different expectations from what they will be getting. And so this is why we started thinking about standards. This is why we wanted to have a harmonized service for harmonized number and to ensure quality assurance, which will then help us build trust with victims who get to call the number. So that was the main thinking around why standards. And now maybe if we go to the next slide and think about how we got there. So you got this lovely video that we saw in the beginning of the history of Victims Support Europe and the work on the helpline, but maybe just to go and look a little bit deeper into one pixel of that, and that is how did we build these standards? So since 2016, within Victims Support Europe, we have been running a Center of Excellence for 116006 helplines and distance support. And this is a group of hardcore frontline professionals who come together every year several times to talk about their work, to talk about the quality of their work, the challenges, the risks for victims, but also the work that they do and the value that their work brings into our societies. And then, through the work with this center, we have started thinking about 116006, and as I said, we notice all these differences between different countries. All 14 member states are represented in the Center of Excellence, and then a few others who actually do not provide the 116, but provide other types of distance support. And around that thinking, in 2020, the Center of Excellence authored a position paper on 116006 helplines, which was the first stage in kind of thinking around how do we make unified, harmonized quality of these helplines. And then, as we saw in that wonderful video, in 2023, the Commission decided to open the Victims Rights Directive for revision. And this is where we understood that there was actually, our advocacy might come and kind of cost us the quality and the trust of victims. Because in some communications with some member states that were thinking around that time to potentially set up their own helpline, either 116006 or under a different number, we understood that there is some basic misunderstanding of what the helpline was. And that was about how do we provide a service. And in one conversation with an important stakeholder from a government, I realized that they were planning to set up a helpline and literally put it on a tender for a call center. And this is where we understood that we need to have, before the EU actually introduces the obligation of 116006, we had to set out the expectations clearly. We had to put it out there. Currently, we are lucky to have all 14 operating helplines as members of Victims Support Europe. But the next 13, we are not sure whether they will be our members or not. We cannot oblige them. Unfortunately, the Commission refused to put that in their two-page recital that every operator should be a member of Victims Support Europe. They told us that that's not how it works. But the idea was really about, like, you know, setting the standard out there, making sure that everyone knows about it, and making sure that they cannot pretend to not have known. So if some governments decide to implement the standard, the helplines, ignoring our standards, it's not because the standards weren't there, but because they made a choice, a policy decision to set it up differently and independently, and they may get to the same result, but this is a very helpful tool. So that's why in 2022, when the word went out around, like, you know, the opening of the Victims Rights Directive for amendments, we started thinking about standards, in addition to this position paper, standards to actually give a clear guidance, a specific bullet points of what is a helpline and how it should be implemented. And so the Center of Excellence that has been operating from 2016, and in which we have around 20 to 25 member organizations and representatives of those member organizations. Between those members, a handful of volunteers, professionals who actually operate 116006 helplines, and one that doesn't operate that specific helpline but operate another helpline, they came together and created a working group for drafting of 116006 standards. So Victims Support Europe has been providing administrative, logistical support to this working group and to the Center of Excellence to actually come together, the professionals who pick up the phone, who answer the calls, to sit around the table and come to the understanding of what is a minimum standard, even when that meant that one of those members will actually, by definition, already be falling behind and not meeting the standard. Because the idea was not to find the lowest common denominator, but to actually find what is the minimum lowest level of expectations that we'll give to the victims when we start promoting 116006 helpline in terms of getting minimum quality of service for victims. And so in 2025, the standards were finalized. They were put to the adoption to the General Assembly of Victims Support Europe, and the standards were adopted last year in Lisbon. So that's how we got there. And now, just quickly to go through the standards, you will be receiving the link that will take you to the standards. We're going digital, so we haven't printed the booklets, but you also have these little leaflets that just set out standards very briefly, so I'm going to guide you through it. So, standard number 1. We heard about it, and also, like, this is very deliberate why we chose this order. Standards are accessible to all victims. So we heard from the previous panel about what are the challenges for victims and how victims actually have difficulties to access the service. So the standard is about what it actually means to be accessible. So what does that mean in practice? That means that the helpline is available anywhere in the country. So you can't have areas where there's no signal and, like, people cannot call. If there is no signal, then you should have a phone booth or something. It should be provided without any registration or any other formal requirements. So anyone is able to call the number. There is no formal administrative obstacles to call the number. It is accessible to anyone, and this is particularly important, including to victims with disabilities and cross-border victims. So Kasia was talking about the language. We also haven't mentioned English anywhere, but it's really important for helplines to be available in the native language, in the official language of the country, and then also in at least English or another broadly spoken language in the country. That can be done through uses of interpretation services, etc. AI tools are also being more advanced, but we haven't talked about that in standards. It was really important that we set out that accessibility is there for all persons. They have to be free of charge. That's also reasserting what's in the directive. They have to be available to all victims of all crimes without any distinction and any discrimination. And this is what is really special about 116006, is that all victims of all crimes can call, can get minimum level of support, and then potentially also referral to a specialist organization. And they have to be available to both direct and indirect victims, so families of victims, friends of victims, so not just the victim. There will be no forensic analysis, as Rosa was saying, like, you know, where were you and were you really a victim or not? If you feel like the crime impacted you in your life, Helpline is there to support the person. So that's the first standard. Next standard, which might be sounding similar but is actually different, and that is services are available to all victims. So accessibility is like the infrastructure, and now we talk about availability. So this is where we go into specifics. So Kasia said there is no requirement in the directive to have 24/7. Our standards also recognize that there is no requirement for 24/7, even though some organizations do provide that. But what is important is that there will be at least 40 hours a week. And also, like the standard when you go, because there is a little bit more, like when you look into the full document, there is a lot more detail. That also means that these 40 hours a week should not be from 9 to 5 every day when everyone's working. So when the helpline is not open, there must be alternatives. So there must be a website, there must be some sort of chat service, there must be a recorded message saying you have reached us, these are our opening hours, and potentially also you can leave a message to be called back, etc. But there has to be something. It can't be just like flat line, sorry, we're closed. At least 85% of calls must be dealt with. So this is really important. There are times when there is a lot of traffic towards the helpline, and the standard is that at least 85% of calls have to be picked up, responded, and the victim has to get support. This is based on experience, so we haven't made this up. It's what is reasonable. Calls must be picked up within 30 minutes. So when there are busy periods, there has to be a waiting line, and there has to be an infrastructure that ensures that the call will be picked up within 30 minutes, or that the person will be called back. The call, and this is what we already heard from our victims panel, the call lasts as long as it takes. We had examples in some member states where the governments were prescribing the duration of the calls, and they said it was, 15 minutes or something. And we know that this is not enough. Sometimes people need time to tell their story. Sometimes you have to keep the call open for a long time. There may be some exceptions, but this is like the rule is that the call takes as long as it takes. And then this is important, and this we get questions from interested parties, and our members struggle with this a lot. We also have that in our office when people are calling with the expectation of us supporting them, even though they are not a victim of a crime, but maybe, you know, they might have mental health issues, or they might have a social issue. They're a homeless person that we can't help. This is, all those people will get the call, they'll have the empathy, they will be listened, and then they will potentially be referred if that's possible. But then there is also the reality that some people, exceptionally, some people can be disruptive, can be abusive, and can be disrespectful. And for those kinds of people, but under a lot of scrutiny, their calls can exceptionally be restricted, but only for a limited period of time, and only once after the person has been informed that this can happen. And then finally, information has to be made available for victims of cross-border crime, in the sense that all helplines have to be able to provide basic information about support and rights in other EU member states. So not just cross-border victims who are victims in the country of the call, but also for other EU member states. So next standard. So standard number 3 is services need to provide support to all victims, and there is a lot of talk in the preamble to standards about the types of support, etc. Kasia also mentioned that this is already to an extent foreseen by the directive, but let's see what it means. It means that the helpline is applying a victim-centered approach. So the victim is, as we heard, it's not about collecting forensic evidence. It's actually about talking to the person and trying to understand what's happening in their life and what they need. Ensure victim safety first. So 116006 is not a crisis helpline. It's not a hotline. It's a helpline for people who have a certain need at a certain period of their time. But that does not have to mean that if a person is in a crisis, we will hang up on them and let them loose. So what is important is that the caller has to, first of all, ensure that victim is safe. If they're going through a crisis situation, that the person picking up the call has the training, has the tools to manage this crisis, and then, if necessary, for the victim to be referred. The helpline has to provide emotional support, and it also has to offer comprehensive information. And of course, everything else that's foreseen in the directive, but this is, in terms of standard, this is where it is at the moment. So if we go to standard number 4, and then this standard is, and we heard about that as well previously, services are confidential. Now, what does that mean? That means that, Ryan? Yeah. So, when we talk about confidentiality, there is a lot of gray areas. So there will be national legislation that might require certain confidentiality elements, but also it can impose reporting. So if there is an obligation for reporting, there is a difficulty to maintain confidentiality. So first of all helplines have to be compliant with national legislation when it comes to their obligations. But then anonymity has to be provided either as a default. There are some operators that provide anonymous helpline support, or by choice. So if helplines do not by default provide anonymous support, victim can choose and request to be and remain anonymous. They have to provide emotional support in this anonymous way, but then provide and offer comprehensive information. And then they also have to be GDPR compliant. So GDPR is one of the big tumbling stones that we have in Victim Support Europe. And unlike the name regulation, where you would expect that it's applied unanimously and uniformly across the EU, we see many, many differences between how different member states actually apply and interpret GDPR when it comes to victim support. But it's important to remain GDPR compliant in line with national interpretation. So number 6, we know, for example, that some existing helplines record calls. What the standard is saying, calls can be recorded, but only with consent. So the default in some helplines that might exist will have to be changed, because recording of the calls can, according to our standards, only be done with consent. And in cases where there is compulsory reporting, then it can be also recorded for reporting purposes. But if there is a recording obligation, the helpline operator needs to inform the victim that there is a reporting obligation, in which moment the victim can decide to hang up. And last but not least, we talked about data collection. So there will be standardized minimum data that will have to be collected by all the operating helplines, so that we can track progress and needs for development and for future changes, etc., at the EU level. So this is also something that we'll be working towards. So we're halfway there. Standard number 5. I'll try to speed it up. Standard number 5. Services have to be provided by professional organizations. So this is also something that has been touched upon in the directive. There's something, okay. My PowerPoint is not perfect. So they have to be provided by professional organizations. Why is this important? Because we have to know that the quality of standard that the standard of quality is also kind of built through through the institution or the organization that provides service. So services are provided by legal entities that are able to effectively provide service to all victims and have the support of okay. So the punctuation is important. So services should be provided by legal entities that are able to effectively provide service to all victims. So that means that they have to have enough resources, infrastructure, etc. And then there should have been a semicolon, and they had the support of all victims of all crimes as one of their core missions. So this means that we do not want, well, the helpline operators thought that it was important to have a victim support approach when helpline is provided, so that it's not a call center that provides helpline, so that it's not a random opportunistic company that might see this as a possible good income source to provide helpline. So the support to all victims of all crimes doesn't have to be the only mission, the sole mission, but it has to be one of the core missions of the organization providing the helpline. Cannot be provided by profit-making entities. So from the standards point of view, victim support is not a profit-making activity, and entities providing support to victims should not do it motivated by the profit, but by the quality of service and by intending and wanting to support victims of crimes. And this is why it's absolutely important for 116006 helplines to not be set up as profit-making entities, and this is what the standard is also setting. And as Kasia already talked about, can be provided by both professional and volunteers. So that's the professional organizations. Standard 6, so this is about training. So all operators, everyone who's picking up the phone has to go through professional training. And what does that mean? And now we have a little bit more detail. So all employees and volunteers must be trained. Operators, so there is 2 levels of trainings. There is the skills needed, and then standard sets at the minimum active listening and empathetic communication, how to act in emergency situations, and how to handle inappropriate calls. There's other things that have to be covered, but these are 3 areas that are specifically mentioned. Operators also need to gain knowledge, so not just the skills, but also knowledge about victims' rights, about legal systems, about court proceedings, etc. Everything that a victim might ask in a call. This is what the operators need to know. There has to be induction training of at least 40 hours of effective learning, spaced over a period of time, depending on how different organizations want to organize it, and at least 4 hours refresher training every year. Knowledge and skills need to be regularly verified through tests, through evaluations, etc. So, standard number 7, 116006 service providers conduct regular monitoring evaluation. Why is this important? Because we need to know if our service is good, if it's relevant, if it responds to the needs of the victims, etc. And so this is why we thought this was important to set up as a standard. So monitor, evaluate quality of calls through internal and external evaluation, running monitoring continuously and do evaluation at least once a year. And also, importantly, always give an opportunity to victims to give feedback in an appropriate way. So there is no obligation for victims to give feedback. It's also very sensitive in terms of at the end of the call, if you're happy with this call, can you please click the link and give us a good evaluation? So it's very complicated and sensitive. So a lot of discretion will be left to the operator in terms of how this feedback will be received and solicited. But it is really important to make it known to the victim that whether they're happy with the service or they're unhappy with the service or they're completely indifferent, that there is a possibility for them to give feedback on the quality of services. And then last but not least, no, this is actually, there will be another one. No, let's go to the next one. It's just, okay. Standard 8, service provide a path for complaints and grievances. So understanding that there will be situations where a victim will not be happy either with the conversation and the tone or the attitude of the operator, or with the level of service information that they have received on the phone, or not necessarily on the phone, that's another thing. But the victims have to have a path to grievances and complaints. So if you click just once more, yes. So every caller can file a grievance. Procedures are transparent and readily identifiable in advance. All complaints and grievances need to be objectively considered and responded to within a maximum of 30 days, and there should be meaningful outcomes for justified grievances. So we try to keep it rather open-ended for the operators to actually make their own rules under these guidelines, but with very specific expectations in terms of not just when a victim can expect a reply if they submit a grievance, but also that there will be a meaningful consequence if a fault is found with the quality of the call, with the service that was provided or not provided. And then last but not least, but very important, 116006 providers ensure visibility and awareness raising. We talked about that in the previous panel about how do victims know about the helpline. We also have some reports, for example, that like at a certain area, someone put a poster 116006 without explaining what it meant and who it was targeting and what people were supposed to expect from that number. So it's really important to do it in a better quality. So like publicity information around 116006 has to be easily accessible, visible, and well publicized. So just having a helpline without promoting it is not very helpful because people will not know where to go. Organizations need to proactively provide information on existence of helplines and their availability and the services that are offered through the helpline, and obviously outside of it as well if they do. And they have to regularly reach out to potential victims of crimes by means of campaigns and programs to promote the helpline. So this is very, very like running through the standards. As I say, you will receive the link. You'll be able to read the full document with much more detail and much more detailed explanations. And that is where I will take a deep breath, and I will also open the floor for you for your any questions. I think we have a few more minutes.
Hi, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. I have a question, or one question is, would it be possible to make 10 standards out of these 9 standards? It's just for the sake of the publicity, you know, the 10 golden standards of Victim Support Europe. Just, you know, reflect on this. But jokes aside, this is really excellent. I'm very, very happy to see these standards. I can tell you that many of these standards will be binding obligations for the member states. Very many of those that were mentioned here. And those who are not who will not be binding obligation, we can still consider presenting to the member states as going beyond the minimum obligations, the minimum standards, the places where the member states will be encouraged to go about. So you may also want to have another look at your standards and divide them in between what is an absolute necessity for the member states to have in place, because otherwise the Commission will be going after them and making infringement proceedings if they do not fulfill these basic needs, and where you go above the minimum standard, so where there is a bit more of a leeway.
Well, this is already a minimum, Kasia. This is the minimum. There is nothing lower than this. No, but I mean, no, I understand, and thank you for that. And absolutely. So one of the things that we are hoping to do, because standards have been adopted last May, so it's not yet been a year since we've adopted them. And even though the document that I referred to is already relatively detailed, what we would like to do is build tools to support organizations to actually get to that minimum standard in terms of guidelines and handbooks and toolkits in terms of training. So training program, for example, is not so developed in detail. So like a training program, a peer support sort of system for different organizations, especially our members. I mean, there's Carmen, like APAV has been supporting victims on 116, Maya as well. Like, you know, there are people who have been doing this for decades and who can actually go out there and support building of these systems. So this is really something that we're happy to do. And one of those things is also wink, wink. We have a proposal pending to get funding to develop these tools in partnership with our member organizations, to develop these tools to really have a concrete like proposal, an offering to member states that are developing helplines at the moment to actually go there and use those tools and build minimum quality standard. This is minimum. Thank you.
A question concerning standard 4. In case, anonymously, in case I would call, you probably would see my number. How do you deal with this? Is it a breach of anonymously, or do you register the number, or how do you deal with this? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Actually, some of our members who provide anonymous support have special technical tools. They work with technical support companies, and the operators actually cannot see the number at all. So that's done in the background. So they have a contract with the technical company that basically blocks the visibility of the number. And then they will not see the number. There might be some ways for them to actually get the number revealed to them, but only if there is a serious suspicion that the person is in danger. And then in that case, they have to go through the police, etc. So I don't operate that myself, so I can't tell you many details, but I can absolutely tell you who can tell you more about that. But members who do anonymous support actually block the visibility of the number before the call comes in. You're welcome. Lea?
Hello. Can you tell us how you ensure that the members or the hotline operator aren't burdened by the standards? We also have our own set of standards with missing children. We heard also Helen has this set of standards. And it can be, of course, they are minimum and they are there for a reason. But can you tell us, because we are also struggling with this, how do you assess that the members or the helplines are operating these standards? And maybe also in the timeline, do you check that every year, or is it a self-assessment? How do you operate?
Yeah. So this is actually a question that we'll be struggling with once the standards kind of kick off. So we have thought about that. It's consensual. So all members that operate helplines were part of this, and they own the process. So that's already like we have their buy-in from the outset that this is what they want to apply. And we have like colleagues in the room who actually work in the field. So Carmen, for example, who know, and this is the understanding, basic of the understanding of these organizations, that these standards are really important. So like, yeah, it might be like, pain to fill in the questionnaire or to do this or that, but at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of providing high quality service. It's just a necessary part of the work. The next step is indeed through the proposal, hopefully, if we don't get that funding, we'll find ways to fund it, is to actually create a system of auditing and accreditations. Because the idea is that there will be periodic audits of helplines in terms of asserting that standards are being abided by and they're being implemented. We still don't know, so this is like the next stage in terms of like all these tools and having the specific rules around how to follow compliance, but we do see, and there is already a consensus of the members, that they would be open to being regularly audited and kind of go through a standardization and accreditation process regularly, because they see that this is really fundamentally important for the quality of their services and also for having a uniform service at the EU level. So, but happy to brainstorm about that, because I'm sure that they will be changing their minds once they realize how much of a burden that might be. Yes, I mean, once we deliver these tools, then we will, of course, look into and try to minimize the burden. So, like, if there are national accreditation processes, which will usually be in place, whether they are enough and whether we can basically accept if the national accreditation has been positive, then to just kind of take it as like already, okay, let's not duplicate and let's not do what has been done already. But then, we don't know if that's the case across the EU member states, so we have to have something for everyone.
Hello, my question is a bit to your point as well. I like these minimum standards very much, but I wonder, why is it just for the hotlines? Why only the helplines? It sounds like you can build on this and broaden it to all sorts of victim support services.
I have the answer for that. We do have VSE full member standards as well. But that's not the topic of today's conversation. So no, jokes aside, we do have VSE full member standards. And it's a tricky one, because Victim Support Europe is an organization that advocates for rights of all victims of all crimes. And then, as we just discovered, there's many kind of like points where you have to prove that you're doing the right work, etc. We have adopted in 2016 or 17 standards for VSE full members. But that's a very limited group of organizations, because the conditions for full members is that those are organizations that support all victims of all crimes, that they're NGOs, that they provide support at the national level, that they're a member of the Council of Europe member state, that they provide more than one type of support. So if you're just providing helpline, you cannot be a full member. And then there's 4 other conditions that I'm not going to go into because I can't remember them by heart. But yes, we have that. So that exists. But then 116006 helpline is very specific, and only a handful of full members actually provide this type of support. And then we have, for example, in Ireland, we have Crime Victims Helpline. They only provide the helpline. In Latvia, we have Skalbes, who provide helplines. But they just provide helplines. They don't provide other type of support. They provide the 116123 helpline. They provide 0066 and 1 or 2 more. So this is kind of like they... So and then like we have governmental agencies, and for example now I know that there is a police agency in the EU that's preparing to launch a helpline. I do not know if they would decide to become a member of VSC, and I know already even if they do, they don't meet the requirements for VSC full member. So this is like and like, you know, just going out there and kind of standardizing. Everyone's welcome to check our full member standards and comply with them, and we'll be happy to work with everyone to kind of get them to that point where they can also meet those standards and become a full member. But it's like we also have to be reasonable. But thank you. Very relevant question. Yes.
Sorry. I had a question. You said about feedback, and it can be really, really overwhelming for victims to, after having discussed what they wanted to ask support for, to then immediately afterwards give feedback. So I had a couple of thoughts on that. One is the availability to give feedback sort of endless? Like, can one come back to it months later? And also, if you're not actually getting the feedback from the victims that have contacted the support line, will you still ensure that the voices of victims are feeding into the training of the people providing the support on the lines, or perhaps providing feedback where other callers have not felt able to?
Thank you. That's actually a very good question. And indeed, something that we have struggled with. So we have, for example, one excellent example. Our members in Sweden, they have this incredible case management system. And they also have referral from the police, and they kind of integrated their case management system with the police. And they have, I don't know if anyone, Maya, were you there when Sophia was making the presentation? They have like 60 or something% responses to their survey. Like incredible. It's like no one has ever heard of that level of response. But how they do it is because through their case management system, they are able to identify who are the victims who would be likely to respond. So they will not send the link to their survey to a victim who's just been through something horrific and they just had the first call with her, and she might be super traumatized because of whatever, and then they will not send that link to that victim. So they are already able, before they share the link, to know who they are sending it to, but it's Sweden, so like there's no other place like Sweden. Let's put it that way. So the other solution is actually to just inform the victim, listen, you can go to our website, there is this feedback form, and you can do it whenever you feel like it. And then it will be more difficult, because what is kind of beautiful with the Swedish system, they provide anonymous support, but because the system is set up in such a way that they are actually able to already, as they're talking to the victim, and kind of put the data that is limited into the system, they can send the victim, as they're talking to her on her phone, they can send her a link to this anonymous survey.
And then they already, from the system, because it's a personalized link, then they can draw all the data about like what is the gender of people responding to survey and the age and the type of crime, etc. So they don't have to ask that again. And so this is kind of when you open the questionnaire and like you have a survey, then there might be, it's a question of quality. Anyway, it's a perpetual struggle, but the idea is to have at least information about, you can go to our website, there's a link, whenever you're ready, you can give feedback, good, bad, or anything in between. You can go there and you can do it. And of course, the point is to collect feedback from the victims to be able to improve the service based on the victims' feedback. And there would be no like limitation in terms of how, like when you can submit it, because unlike in Sweden, where you can, but like in other countries you can't. So it will just be an open questionnaire, and there will always probably be a risk of like just random people going there and like, you know, like children having fun and going on the website and giving fake feedbacks or whatever. I mean, like, you know, cyber attacks, etc. I won't talk about it, but let's assume that people are inherently good and they will not be doing that and will just be giving genuine feedback, and then will be indeed the idea is to improve the services based on that.
We have a sort of a system like that too, but the victims always say, especially when they have one time or twice contact by phone, they find it difficult to have a complete registration forms, because they say, yeah, what can I say about it? There was a nice person, I got the good information, whatever. And if you have a long-term relationship with someone who gives you service, it's better to do on a higher level, I think, the feedback. So it's good to have a look at it, I think, not to make it too much. So because a lot of victims don't want to go in the complete system all the time. They tell us, I was already a victim, but I don't want to be under research all the time. So only a smaller group want to do that.
Yeah, it is a struggle. So
Yeah.
I mean, this was why like that standard is like a vague and left as like, well, there should be an appropriate way. Appropriate means it can also be cultural. In some countries, people might be happy to respond to surveys. In some countries, people might hate surveys, which I think is all countries. But it's very like that one is like, you know, we will have a project just on surveys in 10 years'
but
time.
you can also be happy just with one question, isn't it? In the end, like, would you recommend, if you know someone that needs help, would you recommend our helpline, for example? That could be just one question, and that question is enough for you to assess already. Because I just recommend something that that serves me, or it was good for me, or it gave me an answer to I don't know, to a need. If nothing of this happened, probably you will not recommend anything. So, should we choose one question? That is also a discussion that we could also have.
Sorry, we stop, but
we
I
have
think
a panel here. You can just take your seats and I will moderate the panel. I like this.
I think there is a difference between if you are satisfied about the service and what's the and what's the impact of the service, isn't it?
But it depends on the question.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I don't know if Marina will let us take another question, or that's it. That's it. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. This was really, really enriching. I'm very happy to see a room full of people excited about standards, at least equally as I am. So welcome to the Nerd Club. We won't be giving out awards today, but next time, you'll come next year. Thank you, Marina.
The standards, they might seem complex and impossible to follow, but actually we've got 3 exemplary women today who follow most of those standards, who represent 3, and they were part of actually developing those standards. Those 3 women, they come from 3 different countries. One is Portugal, and Carmen, she represents APAV, Victim Support Portugal. Another person is Maja Staha, and she represents Victim Support Victim and Witness Support Service Croatia. And the third person is Siri, help me Siri, Siri Urbas, and she represents Estonia. So the floor is yours. The hard-hitting questions will be addressed by Levent Altan, our executive director.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Is that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I feel by half an hour late and also by you introducing it, I won't introduce everyone again, I think, just to save a little bit of time. The idea now is to hear something from the people who are actually operating the helplines, give them an opportunity to explain how their services run, and then we'll ask, apparently I'm asking hard-hitting questions. One thing that Marina didn't say is that Carmen is not only the Secretary General of APAV, she's also the Treasurer of Victim Sport Europe. What she said to me was if I ask too many hard-hitting questions, she will ask me hard-hitting questions about our budget. So they may not be as hard-hitting. So I'll be cautious about how I ask these questions. I will say one other thing. I don't think that anyone's mentioned it, but today we actually published our next 5-year strategy. Am I not allowed to mention it? Can I mention it? Then maybe you should communicate that to me. But we've just published our next strategy, so Marina is going to explain that, but I think we'll have the QR codes and everything available for it. So I worry when things aren't mentioned. Okay, so I will hand over to each one of you just to talk a little bit, a few minutes around your services, and then we'll ask some questions. We will also use, are we going to use Slido? Do we have time to use it? We'll, because it's too difficult to put up hands, we will allow you to write questions on Slido. Slido is where you go on slido.com, slido.com, or you have your camera, you have the QR code, and then you'll be able to put questions, which then we can take some of those questions straight away. So that's the purpose of the panel today. I'm going to hand over first of all to Carmen. You're first. You don't want to? I knew that it would be trouble inviting Carmen to speak. But Carmen, do you want to speak first?
Yeah, it's okay. Well,
okay. Over to you then.
Do I have a choice? Thank you so much. So yeah, Carmen from Victim Support Portugal. I'm the executive director and also have the honor to be treasurer of Victim Support Europe, which is one of the things that I like to do most. So how did we start it? Because it's a bit of that, isn't it? Starting point, like challenges. Where did we get so far? So you remember 2008 financial crisis, I think, some of you at least. And so that was the trigger point for us to go for, and it seems like strange, but we had, of course, a calling number, but it was a paid service. We had in Portugal this, what they call it, literally translated like green numbers, but they had a high cost for us as an NGO. We were much smaller by then, by 2008. But then with the financial crisis and people were not able to reach us, even, it looks like, oh, but it's just, some cents or €1 a call, but it was too much for people. So I think that was the trigger force for us to, let's just stop everything and then let's focus on this and what do we need or how can we get a free free of cost helpline. And that was our major objective by then. And so what we had to do, we didn't have 116,000 funding from the European Commission to fund the helpline. There was no 006 by then. I think it was 2009, wasn't it? I think that was added to the directive. So there's no possibility by then. So we had to go for national funding, different ones. So foundations, I can't remember. It was like 3 different projects in 3 different times for us to set, software, hardware, training, get to know. Good that we are in this community, a very supportive community even between ourselves. Why? Because we learned from France Victim by then. We also, because they were more established in terms of the helpline, we also learned from other peers. We contact a lot missing children afterwards, also to know what were your difficulties in setting up the service, what is the bureaucracy associated, because there are a lot of surprises in this bureaucracy world. So just for you to have an idea, we started all this work but only in 2014 we got the 116 officially 006, because you had to go for your national telecommunication operator. Someone has to say that, yeah, you are good enough to manage the helpline, even though you already, well, showed a lot. And so, yeah, and you need a lot of resources for that. This was also the changing factor in the case of APAV for our case management system. So we associate both moments. It was not just having a helpline, it was to have a whole new way to work with victims directly. So yeah, what I can say is that from the previous year, well, you see the statistics. See there? Before and after the 116006, and this already says everything, I think. You can even say, oh, it's just 1,000 people. Come on, it's much more than we were reaching out even before. And you can even see like what are discrepancies and why are the numbers going lower. These are just the numbers of victims, not the numbers of calls. Okay, the numbers of calls are much more. There's no diminishing in terms of the numbers of calls. At the same time, what's happening here is that APAV also manages the Safer Internet Helpline. And so the majority of the cases that reach up, I'm probably going in a different direction from what was planned. Yeah. But so the like 49% of entrance of victims come from the helpline, but 30% comes from emails or other types of contacts from our social media or other ways that we are there for the victims. So that also shows the difference in numbers in terms of the workload of the helpline, because if we spread even more the types of services that we have in the field, that also spreads the workload. So we cannot say that there are enough services for victims of crime. What we have from experience is that if you are there in different ways, then people that really need help are able to reach out and get the help they need. But more than that, so just for me not to lose track, or else they are going to, yeah. So what I was saying before, it was just for us case management system to have the helpline, but before when we started and implementing it, and we already talked before, Lea also mentioned it before, it's just not having the helpline, the 116006, it's having people also reaching out in different ways. Social media, of course, email, other types of services. We also provide, and it was also briefly mentioned before, hearing impaired service. So if a person needs an interpreter, a sign language interpreter, we also have that services in our 116006. In terms of technology, there was, imagine 2008. By that time, we didn't have even a Portuguese company that really wanted to work with us. Not that we are nasty people, I think, but because I don't think they would see, the point, or they would see why is this so, is this, and even the company that started to work with us, they were not aware of the amount of work that we are going to give them, really. Not the national operator, it was the company, Reditus, by that time, that developed the software for us to take the call. So, like, imagine when you have a difficulty on your mobile service and you reach out the provider. That behind as a whole script. So we had to develop the whole script, which was the base for our case management system. So the company was like, it's going to be easy. You already have something like that. It's just, change the number of questions. But you were not expecting the walls of questions that we had in terms of the script by that time. Of course, now it's more simplified. You already have a third version of our case management system. So a lot has changed. But also, we were by a certain period, we were dependent on the location where we were. So it was Lisbon. Lisbon, the majority of our helpline supporters were there. And when we got software change, which is called One Agent, it was possible to spread to the whole country because we are a national-wide based organization. So it makes a lot easier. It makes easier for us to see the load. to take a call if no one is able to answer. So it's a real time, very useful operational managing system. Besides that, we also have another plugin which is called Clientscape. It was a startup that allowed us to have in just one place. Imagine I'm Carmen, I'm calling now, but then probably I will send an email, and then probably I will reach out by social media, and then probably I will go to one of our local offices, and I don't need to repeat all over again. So you have to have a system in place that allows for this to happen, so that you are not doing whatever the whole other players in the system are doing, which is very important. And yeah, I have a news, because last week we just launched our chatbot, which we also expect, at least so far, is getting very good feedback, that also allows for people to reach out in different times, people that in a first moment don't want to reach out to a person, which is something, well, I'm 44 years old. I would not think that people would like that, but yeah, they do. And that's okay. I'm just too old, probably. But yeah, and you also asked, how do we do, and it's also touched upon in terms of standards, how do you assess your quality and how do you monitor? We have an internal monitoring system. We also have like quality management system, you know, the ISO one, that allowed us to really have a good procedures and quality management system. We had the question to do, but never worked out really well. What we have is other types of impact evaluation, but more in the local victim support offices. Everyone can reach out to us and say, I didn't like this call, I didn't like that. It's completely free. We just need to address it afterwards in a very proper way. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Carl.
patience.
No, perfect. It's good. It's interesting. Maya, I'll allow you to do the same. We're just something around how it started, where you are now, and some of that on the impacts and results.
Yeah, thank you. So for us, everything started in 2012. So I work as a so our national call center is part of Victim and Witness Support Service Croatia, but the national call center was funded through a project funded by the United Nations Development Program that was led by Ministry of Justice. So in 2012, there weren't any national funds available for us to apply to. So we got the funds from United Nations. And that project lasted for 2 years. And as I said, in 2012, the project started, but there was so much to do before the opening the helpline. So we had to prepare the training, we had to prepare the database, we had to find the volunteers, we had to train them. We also had to find a telecommunications company who would support us in providing helpline and support through our helpline. So that core work lasted more than a year, and the helpline was open in 2013, so July 2013. Ministry is still here supervising us, but the helpline is coordinated by Victim and Witness Support Service Croatia. In the beginning, we were very reliable on our volunteers. We had only one employee, and around 60 to 70 volunteers that provided support. Our working hours were from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. from Monday to Friday. So it was a challenging time because, well, challenges were obviously operational. Have in mind what I said about all the work needed to be done before opening the helpline. But also when we opened the helpline, there were cultural challenges. Because we were there, we were ready, and we were trained to provide legal support and emotional support. But people were not very trustworthy, and they didn't want to ask for emotional support. And when they called us, well, we were acting like a call center. Our calls lasted around 5 minutes. And what we basically did for the first 2 years, we just referred the people who called us to other NGOs that could provide support. So that was very different than things are now. And we put in a lot of work to change that, and we are still doing that because we are part of civil society, and there is the air in Croatia that civil society is not to be trusted, although we are have decades of work behind us. So that is something that we are still working on. And I have to stress that the legal framework was very different in Croatia now then. Because in 2013 we just entered the European Union, and the victim, that was a new role in the criminal proceeding. For the first 4 years, I think in 2018, victims got a lot more rights than they had before. When we started, victims had only 3 rights: to get the information, to get the support, and to testify in the proceedings. So the criminal proceeding saw a victim only as a witness. So we wanted to provide legal support, but we didn't have anything to tell them about their rights because they weren't recognized. But luckily, we entered the European Union, and our legislation changed. And then our helpline changed accordingly. Today, our calls, average duration of our calls is 35 minutes. So every victim that calls our helpline gets emotional support. That is the first type of support that we provide on our helpline. And then legal and practical information come afterwards. Today, we have a much bigger team. There's 7 of us on the helpline, and we are open 24/7, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there has been big change in that way also. What we realized then that we need to be more innovative when trying to attract more callers to our helpline. And we saw that we were not as accessible as we thought at the beginning. So in 2022, we introduced a chat service that has been operational for 4 years now. So that is the medium that is very valuable for us in providing support, especially to victims of gender-based violence and younger people, because they tend more to type than to call and ask for help. And also what is very important for us, so we have been operational for 13 years. And we are at the stage that we are recognized as a crucial part of the victim support system in Croatia. And we have the possibility to develop that victim support with the ministry and with other NGOs and institutions that provide support. So for the past 4 years, we have been piloting and developing opt-in referral system within the Croatia and 116006 helpline as a focal point of that project that became this year a program that we have with Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Interior. So there have been a lot of changes, and well, there's a lot of work ahead of us still. But I must say that I am very happy where we are now and see all that change happening. Thanks.
Well, let's see if I can test that. Before we do that, so we just heard from two service providers who are NGOs. Siri's going to talk now. She's coming from the Social Insurance Board in Estonia, which is a governmental service, but also doing an amazing job in terms of both 116 and support services. Siri.
Okay, sorry. Yes, hello everyone. This is my first time in Brussels. This is my first time speaking about my service since I've been in this role for 3 months. I'm a bit nervous about my English, and I'm really sorry if I cannot answer all your questions, but I'm open to every kind of video chats, yes, video chats to answer you. Okay, I have to lean on my notes. I envy you. You have notes. You don't see them. Okay. So, okay. Before I talk about this 116-006 crisis line, which we in Estonia have named the crisis line, I would like to briefly introduce you this Estonian context and mindset which has influenced our service design. Estonians are often described as individualistic, reserved, and self-reliant, and independence is highly valued both as a small country and as individuals. Talking about personal life and personal needs are something we do not easily do or share. Yes, okay. That's because of in our collective memory, reaching out for support has long carried the risk of stigma and re-traumatization. Yeah, pictures. Okay, sorry, I ruined this one. Okay, because of this, many of people only reach out when they feel their situation has already become a crisis. Because terms and everything, crisis is something that is private. Yes, we all have our crises, and you cannot see my crisis at the moment as a crisis at all. Okay, this is the cultural context behind our choice of naming our service lines as 116-006 crisis line and 116-123 support, emotional support line. Just as I said, the words crisis and support offer people different ways to relate their situation to the service. And we guess that this matters. In our Estonian context, words like crisis and support are often easier to accept than the word help. Which sometimes can be associated with helplessness or loss of autonomy. In Estonia, we unfortunately have it that way. So I have a metaphor that in a way social services and books have a lot of in common. Both carry deep personal stories, and people choose them based on a title, description, or recommendation, yeah, and whether it resonates their state of mind. So, okay, and where it all began, I don't know all the details, sorry, but this Estonian social insurance board part, yes. At the moment, the Estonian social insurance board has moved towards service-based management, where the client, their needs, user experience, and journey to the services are at the center. This reminds us to design services that people can actually reach and relate to, starting with the name of the service. Sometimes the barrier is not the service, it's the name of the service in our Estonian context. Okay, and now about the past. Victim support in Estonia originally grew from civil society initiatives in 1990s. The national victim support system was established in 2005 when services became a part of Estonian Social Insurance Board. The national 116006 crisis line was launched in 2019 as part of the victim support system because there was a need for a low threshold first contact point that is available 24/7 across the country. Today, providing 24/7 crisis line is defined in Estonian victim support legislation. The service is fully funded by the government and it is delivered by professional counselors. Governmental funding allows us to provide a stable service and helps us build trust, which we need in our cultural context. It communicates that supporting victims of crime is a national responsibility and priority, and for both, for those who need support and for those who provide it. Okay, today the service operates in 24/7 and in 3 languages, Estonian, Russian and English. And the service includes the crisis line 11606, then the emotion support line 116123, a web chat with this website and video counseling. And of course we have opportunities to email us. We work closely with our partners such as women's support centers, sexual violence crisis centers, the police and the emergency center. So for many victims of crime, our lines are the first entry point to further services, the first contact, as you already told about. Yes, okay, and maybe to not, I have much text here. But maybe I will talk about this, that what are our future plans are. We are currently exploring safe ways to integrate AI tools in our counselors' work, and not to replace the counseling, but to support this. The idea is that AI could help recognize certain situations or topics and provide the counselor instant information, like this full information about services and procedures. And this would allow counselors to stay fully present with the victim during the conversation. We think so. Okay, this was a short overview. A short overview of our service in Estonia. We are really glad to be a part of Victim Support Europe community, and yeah, I'm really thankful to you all for this opportunity to introduce our service, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Siri. You're not escaping that easily, though. we have some questions to ask. Well, we'll warm up. Don't forget. Well, I'll ask one question, and then I'll ask the team to put up the Slido so that you can start questions as well, or you can even put the Slido now if you want to start submitting questions. That's fine. I think. I don't know whether it's an elephant in the room. It's been raised in a number of different ways, and we have different 116006 service providers, and there are a whole range of different helplines operating in your countries. I think it was last year, was adopted the Violence Against Women Directive, which also now creates the 116016. So, what are your views on this proliferation and of helplines? Do you think do you see challenges with that? Are you concerned that having more helplines is actually making things more problematic, Or are you actually looking at how to coordinate across these? Do you do this at the moment? So I think from a victim's perspective, it must be quite confusing knowing where to go, but others might argue, well, it gives them choice. So who wants to go first? Carmen, you're desperate.
Yeah, I don't love this question.
Not so hard.
No, but it's a very good question. Sometimes we are afraid to talk about things, isn't it? Like things that annoy us sometimes. And of course, that the first... And the feelings are conflicting all the time, in myself even, because of this. Is it better to have more, to have the different helplines? Is it not? And, you know, the thing is that I really defend the more services for victims of crime, if they are... if they have quality, if they are, you know, obliged to given standards or something, if there's minimum standards there, the more services, the better, I have to say. That is one of the things. One thing that really, and sometimes I'm conflicting, like, but does a victim need to know if they are calling the right number or not? They are calling this number and then they are going to me, you know, just feel frustrated because they called and. So a lot of thoughts for sure goes through everyone's minds. But truth is that what we need is everyone aware of everything that exists. We still have the police, like 2 weeks ago we were in the judiciary police, and they were saying to us, yeah, we still have like lists of paper on my walls with numbers of different helplines, which is like, you know, friendly voice or suicide prevention, that type of things. But one thing that they said is, but it would be very helpful if you had a helpline on victims of fraud, for example. And I was like, well, such a specific helpline, but it's helplines are, of course, they are built for victims, but are not only for victims. They're for friends, they're for professionals, people that need more information, people that really need, you know, where to go next. In Victus project, Victim Support Europe project is doing an amazing job in like having something so basic like a map of Europe with the organizations working in the field, the different organizations. So if I really want help, at least I don't know what I'm a victim of. I don't know the penal code. Even for you to make an electronic complaint, you have to have sometimes a degree to identify what is the type of crime that you were a victim of, and you just want to make a complaint and that's it. So if it would me, I already did it, I would just choose randomly. You know, what is you just need help. What it has to exist is a background where if I call the wrong number, I'm referred to the right place. In a very, you know, warmth and giving time way. I think that's the most important thing, but yeah, I tend to see silver lining. So
you
a lot
have
of
that in
times.
place then?
No, you don't.
So
What
how do
I
you do it
have,
now?
for example, in our helpline, we have an online resource database just in Portugal, okay, with the different services available according to the region that you live in, which is like, I don't know, a really patchwork, because if you are in a given part of the country, you have a wide range of services, in others you don't, so you have to really juggle between the best solution that you can give to a victim of a crime. If it's a victim of a crime, because we have calls, for example, from people, and the important thing is for you to refer to another services that are adequate for or a possible solution for that person. We have that, we have, but the police doesn't, for example. And that was one of the things that we were talking with them. But you don't need extra sheets of paper on your wall with all the possibilities, because I was telling them, yeah, I have that resource database, but how can I share it with you in a way that it's, you know, permanently updated and that you can immediately. And in the end, also, what we see is that the important thing is really the connection between not only services, but people. And even if, how can we, and that is one of the things that I think we struggle the most, how can you maintain the connection between organizations that need to have a referral system, if it's formal or informal, whatever it works, something that works, when people change. Because I know Maya is there, I already know her, so it's really easy. Or even Miran, you know, sometimes we say that the Croatian service, what Croatian victim support service, you know, Miran and Maya, and that's it. And everyone knows what we are talking about. So it's people sometimes beyond the organizations, which is difficult also to address if they leave. Yeah, I still conflict. There's no study out there. We have a lot of studies on how people search for help. Is it through a phone? Is it what I see is be on the ground in wide variety of ways, so that if I feel more comfortable in calling or dropping a message, sending an email, it's available for me to ask for help, and that is the most important thing. We have to work on the background a lot in different ways and very imaginative, because no one wants to share data.
And you're all competing often
Yeah.
for the same funds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me ask Siri then, because you're from the government side. Are all of your helplines all coordinated and referring across? Or do you have helplines which are not run by the government, and how do you all coordinate?
Okay, I don't. I guess we have helplines that are not coordinated by government, but what I would like to add that we have very many victim support services in Social Insurance Board or coordinated by Social Insurance Board. So as well as cooperation with the police. Some of our victim support specialists work directly in the police departments. So there's like this cooperation. And sorry, could you please repeat it?
Just how the proliferation of all the lines in Estonia, are
okay.
they being coordinated, or how difficult and easy is it for victims?
I think that, we have this is, I think, a good point to that this Estonian Social Insurance Board is coordinating the victim support services. But I guess that about this problem that we have like very many services, it's a good thing, and it's a difficulty as well, because we live in a world of social media, and we live in the middle of constant information flow. So what comes to awareness and accessibility for victims, then it's like really difficult to stand out with relevant information in social media, because although we are a governmental organization, we have this. We want to be where the people are. In social media, and be visible to everybody. So I think that this is the main difficulty in this service-based world.
So Maya, how is it in Croatia? And I think this point on visibility, if we have all these new lines, how will you remain visible? And maybe you don't think it's a problem because victims are going to a different line. Is there an effort at coordination?
It is an interesting question. It is easy to get lost if there are many services that you can contact. From Croatian perspective, we are a small country. There are less than 4 million people living there. And we have only for domestic violence victims, we have 14 local helplines. Yes, and now that there is a 116016 number that should be nationwide, but it's not promoted as such, because our helpline is promoted by the Ministry of Social Affairs, like the helpline for victims of all types of crimes, but also for victims of gender-based violence. So it is very, very confusing. But I think that whatever helpline a victim choose to call, because as you said, we know each other between all the helplines, and we are able to refer them to the right helpline. But it is hard. I believe that it is hard. It is hard from my point of view because we have a database that we use while providing support on our helpline, and we have to check the data because that database contains all the information, all the contacts of all the NGOs that work in Croatia. But those are NGOs, and they depend on public funding, and that thing changes every year. So we have to check at least twice a year if all the contacts that we have in our database are still operational, because we don't want to give the wrong contact to the victim. So it is hard for us. Then I am sure that it is much more harder for them to find the right association. But also I believe that there needs to be one, probably governmental body that does the coordination of the whole system. And we are very lucky in Croatia because we have that. We have the Ministry of Justice and department inside of Ministry of Justice that does the coordination of the whole system and sees the gaps and asks NGOs and victim support providers to give them our insights. So we are developing the system together. So I'm not under the coercion. There's nobody from Ministry of Justice here, but no, but I have.
Or is there?
I'm not sure, but. But we are very lucky because we have them, and now so in 2026 I think it is very hard if you did survive any type of crime. It is very hard not to see 116006 number, because if you go to the police stations, there are posters. When you file a criminal report, you get the leaflet of rights, and then on the last page there are organizations that are operational in every county. So you have 21 versions of that leaflet for every county. And what is the one thing that is the same on every leaflet is our number. Also, we have a good relationship, with the social Ministry of Social Affairs. So every social worker, should know about 1166 number. So if your case gets to the phase in the court, when you get the invitation to go to the court, on the back of that leaflet, you get 116006 number. So, and that is all that has been done in the last 10 to 15 years. And that is the result of the coordination done by Ministry of Justice and all the NGOs general NGOs that provide support to victims.
Thanks for that, Maya. So you're seeing central coordination is sort of a critical factor. I have a million questions on that. I see we have the questions up there. Has a question been chosen? I just go from the top? Okay, so the question at the top is, if you had 1 minute with any random EU decision makers who may or may not be in the audience, what is the single change you would push for based on your experience? I'm going to make you wait, Carmen. Serious. If you had 1 minute, what is the single change you would push for based on your experience? Single change with respect to helplines and the helplines.
Based on 3 months at my role, okay. One change. One change. Oh my God! I don't want to go to. I don't want to go to this world peace and these kind of themes. I don't know. I need some more time for this question.
Because Carmen's desperate to answer.
Carmen is ready.
Carmen.
Born ready.
Carmen was working on her elevator pitch on her flight.
No, I asked this once already, so I'm asking you and the future people of decision-making processes around the world, is that victim support is considered a peer in the criminal justice system. In my case, in Portugal, it's not yet. So it means that we are not in the same position as, I don't know, criminal, courts, police. We don't have the same type of funding. We are not, even for example, we've been trying for the last 2 years and a half, in meetings, in really putting our foot on the door on, the Internal Security Fund that really states victim support, for example, states there, and we are always saying, why are you calling victim support? And they are just funding police, and they are just funding other systems that are also needed to get funded. I'm not saying that, but we are not there because we are not seen as a peer. So if something would change for me in my country, would be that. Because I know that everything else will follow.
So the status of helplines, the status of victim support services as essential services as well. So, Maya, what would you ask?
I agree with Carmen, but the funding is the question. I would ask European legislators to demand from countries to have a fair budget for victim support and for development of victim support. So that would be my wish and my question for legislators.
Thanks for that, Maya. And we're halfway there from what Kasia said, is that there is at least that reference. Of course, how you define what is fair and appropriate is, I think, left to the member states. I've been told we have to stop. Yeah, we're out of time. Unless there's one urgent question that someone didn't wanted to ask. I don't see it. Okay, good. During the lunch. Okay, during lunch. Thank you to all three of you. I think part of the point of this session is.
Siri came up with her question. Or are you saved by the bell?
Yeah, I picked this Saving by the Bell, but for a moment I forgot before to say that crisis line in Estonia, it's called as well this Hello service in our organization. What it becomes this coordinating services. Yes, 11606 is the Hello service, which means this first entry point, and yes, of course, Social Insurance Board is coordinating. We are happy to have so many victim support services governmentally organized, and it's internal work processes that every service owner and specialist that we communicate to one another, that we know what one service does and the other doesn't. So this gives much valuable information to provide to the victims, to referrals. Yes. Okay, sorry. I wanted to add this, but I don't have my question. Sorry. Maybe next year.
Next year, in the lunch break. Thank you to all three of you. I think it's really important to hear the challenges. We will have, hopefully in 2 years' time, another 13 helplines operating. We hope not only do they operate according to the standards we set forth, but they work in this coordinated way as well. I think that we certainly see the challenges and the risks that all operators will be facing, and especially in this setup phase. I think what we have now with the 14 is huge amounts of experience, a lot of pain over decades in setting up and then running the services, and you and we are all ready to support governments and NGOs to set those systems up in as efficient way as possible, as in the least painful way possible as well. I think so. So lean on us, stand on our shoulders, I think is the message. So thank you to all three of you. Thank you.
The most difficult part goes to our Vice President Jerome Moreau, who comes from France. He represents today Victim Support Europe, but also he represents France Victims, who conduct one of the oldest helplines in Europe. And Jérôme will also invite all of you to our next big event, which will happen in Paris. The rest is on Jérôme. Thank you.
Just a few words, dear everyone, and I want to thank, to begin, the Victims Support Europe team for organizing this in-person European Day for Victims of Crime. And it's not a conclusion, but I think we start a new period for the 116006. And this is the second time we held this event in person. And third, sorry, second you said. And it truly matters. Bringing Brussels-based and national decision makers together in one room makes a difference. Face-to-face connection speaks louder than 1,000 visuals. This is an event to be truly experienced. When else will we have the opportunity to meet in person a variety of European helpline operators, 116006 coordinators, law enforcement professionals, and victim support workers, all in one place. This meeting has enabled important and highly interesting exchanges. And in a few words, I will try to provide a synthesis so that from France to Europe, Paris to Brussels, the promotion of victims' rights becomes a reality. I would also like to thank all those who spoke this morning, as these were inspiring moments that taught us a great deal and will enrich our practices. These show us that the work of supporting victims ever better and ever more is still a long journey. It is the role of the European victim support movement to strengthen support systems. We have the support of the European Commission through the revised Victim Directives, which requires member states to establish the helpline. We also need the commitment of national governments to make this a reality, with victim support services and NGOs working directly with victims, playing a leading role on the ground. Ensuring the accessibility of a single, universal number throughout Europe is now a challenge for all of us. And we have a duty to respond positively to this need of victims of crime, so that everyone knows they have access to a single, universal entry point to ensure the protection of their rights. As you know, I am French, and we have been carrying the 116006 for many years now, since it was implemented in France in October 2018, and we start in 2008. Our difficulty still lies in the fact that the number belongs to the Ministry of Justice, and we operate on a fragile basis of a public procurement contract. We denounce this foundation of the public procurement. Our experience teaches us 116006 constitutes a fundamental entry point for all victims of crime. It is essential in this way that the organization responsible for this number understands victims, their rights, their needs, their judicial, administrative, social procedure. They can be immediately and properly referred. In France, we receive more than 72,000 calls each year, and we have observed a 105% increase in calls between 2019 and 2025. This increase has been made possible by a strong communication campaigns and by the recognized expertise of the call handlers. Our strength lies in the universalism, our approach based on equality of rights and support, our multidisciplinary vision, the free nature of our services, and the individual care of victims. In France, our experience is also based on our ability for over 40 years to support nearly 500,000 victims through a network of 130 associations involving legal experts, psychologists, social workers, and innovative tools such as Facility Dog and digital application for victims. However, we know that we will still face to new challenge to address. Emergency situation and the search of new partners for victims in suicidal crisis following a crime. Accessibility for people with disabilities, such as deaf and hard of hearing persons. The implementation of a chat service for younger people. In short, continuously adapting our tools and mechanisms. In Europe, the challenge is the same. The aim of this day is to push, yes, to push. Only one idea: no victim should be left alone. Ethical service and support requires human and personalized listening, and this even is more true when it comes to 116006. It is no longer acceptable that only 14 countries have this helpline in Europe. A land of human rights since the 18th century must also send a strong message to vulnerable people. The various European texts protecting freedoms remind us that victims have a core set of fundamental rights in criminal law that member states must respect, among them the right to information and to support. The 116006 is clearly one of the means by which these rights can be exercised fully. Thanks to everyone who signed our campaign pledge. Today, on the European Day for Victims, my role within Victim Support Europe is to send a strong message. We call for the full implementation of the 116006 helpline in all countries where it does not exist. Victims need access to support everywhere in Europe. We owe this to victims. Thank you for your attention.
We are going to close this event. Thank you very much for being here with us today. I wanted to stress this one important thing. We launched on this European Day for Victims of Crime our 5-year strategy. And so, of course, we will send to all of you this document in our thank you email. We strongly encourage you to read this strategy, and if you plan to collaborate with us, see how you fit into our vision and planning. It's a very handy document. Second thing is the Paris conference. It happens on the 2nd and 3rd of June. And we strongly invite you to attend this big meeting. The early bird registrations are open and are valid only till the 1st of April. Second thing, before we depart to Paris, we run a 20K marathon in Brussels, so it's relevant to people who are based in Brussels. Join us. We opened registrations to support Victims Support Europe's team. Register. Places are also limited, I think. We can have only 40 people running in our T-shirts, so please do so also within the coming weeks. And on this positive note, I'm closing this event. I give the floor to Ruben, our photo correspondent, to make a group photo over here in the outdoor lounge. Thank you.